Story 1. The Mirror Convoy. The truck behind me had my exact license plate. I noticed it at 2:47 a.m. on Interstate 40, somewhere between Amarillo and Oklahoma City, when I adjusted my driver's side mirror and caught the reflection of those Tennessee plates, X7J9R4. The same combination bolted to my own Peterbilt 579. I blinked hard, thinking exhaustion was playing tricks after 16 hours behind the wheel, but when I checked again, the truck was still there, matching my speed exactly at 67 miles per hour. My name is Patricia Sullivan, 42 years old, divorced, been hauling refrigerated goods for Schneider National for 9 years. I've driven through blizzards in Montana, navigated flooded highways in Louisiana, once had a brake failure coming down the Grapevine into Los Angeles. I'm not someone who spooks easily, but those plates made my stomach drop like I'd missed a gear on a steep grade. I accelerated to 75. The truck behind me accelerated. I slowed to 60. It slowed. For 3 miles, we moved in perfect synchronization. I grabbed my CB radio. "Hey, driver behind me, you got a copy?" Static. "Driver in the Peterbilt, you're following pretty close there." Nothing but white noise and the occasional pop of distant conversation from other channels. The highway stretched empty ahead, my headlights cutting through March darkness. The landscape was flat Oklahoma prairie, occasional oil derricks visible as darker shapes against the black sky. No moon tonight. My reefer unit hummed steadily, keeping my load of frozen chicken at -10 degrees. Everything normal except for the impossible truck in my mirror. I decided to test something. Without signaling, I suddenly changed lanes. In my mirror, the truck behind me changed lanes at the exact same moment, not a second delay, simultaneously. Like it was tethered to me. My hands started sweating on the steering wheel. I changed lanes again. It mirrored me again. The CB radio crackled and I heard my own voice say, "This isn't happening." But I hadn't spoken. I jerked the radio away from my mouth, staring at it. The radio crackled again. "Exit 108 coming up in 2 miles. My voice, my exact inflection, the way I always announced exits to myself on long hauls to stay alert. But the words were coming from the radio and my lips weren't moving. I looked back at the road and screamed. There was another truck ahead of me now, a Peterbilt 579 white cab refrigerated trailer. And as my headlights hit it, I could see the license plate X7J9R4. I was boxed in, one ahead, one behind, both impossible. My speedometer read 70 miles per hour. The truck ahead maintained exactly the same speed, staying precisely 40 feet in front of me. The one behind stayed 40 feet back. I tried to brake. They braked. I accelerated. They accelerated. The distance never changed, not by an inch. The radio voice, my voice, spoke again. "You should have stopped at exit 92. I frantically tried to remember exit 92. That was an hour ago, just past Elk City. A rest stop I'd considered but skipped because I wanted to make my delivery window in Tulsa by 6 a.m. "You should have stopped," the radio repeated, but this time the voice sounded wrong. Still mine, but the cadence was off, like someone had cut up a recording of me speaking and spliced it back together incorrectly. I noticed something else. The truck ahead of me. I could see through its rear windows into the cab. There was a driver silhouetted against the green dashboard glow. A woman. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. I reached up and touched my own hair. Ponytail. She adjusted her mirror. I watched her hand move and simultaneously felt my own hand rise to my mirror without conscious control. My body was copying her movements, or she was copying mine. Or we were both copying something else. The realization hit like a physical blow. I couldn't see the drivers in the truck behind me, but there were 3 trucks now visible ahead. All Peterbilt 579s, all white, all with my license plate. They stretched into the darkness like a convoy of ghosts. I counted them. 7 trucks ahead. I checked my mirror, 7 trucks behind. 15 trucks total, all identical, all moving in perfect unison with me at the center. The radio erupted with overlapping voices, all mine, speaking simultaneously. Exit 108, exit 108, should have stopped. Exit 108, wrong choice. Exit 108, can't stop now. Exit 108, the exit sign appeared. Exit 108, service is next, right? Every muscle in my body screamed to take it, but my foot wouldn't move to the brake. I watched my hands grip the steering wheel tighter, watched the exit ramp pass by, and the moment it disappeared behind me, all 15 trucks, ahead and behind, turned their headlights to high beam simultaneously. The world became a blinding white tunnel. I couldn't see the road, couldn't see the lines, could only see the overwhelming glare of 30 headlights boxing me in. My own headlights seemed to dim by comparison. The speedometer needle began rising. 75, 80, 85. My foot was pressing the accelerator, but I wasn't controlling it. Stop! I screamed at myself, at my foot, at whatever was happening. The trucks maintained their exact distances, all accelerating together. 90 miles per hour now. The Peterbilt's engine roared. My reefer unit's hum became a high-pitched whine. The frozen chicken in my trailer, 28,000 pounds of it, shifted slightly, and I felt the trailer begin to sway. The radio voices multiplied, not just mine anymore. Other voices I didn't recognize, dozens of them, all talking over each other. Exit 92, exit 73, exit 45, should have stopped, should have stopped, should have stopped. Different exits, different drivers. How many people had been caught in this? At 95 miles per hour, I saw something that made my blood crystallize. The lead truck ahead, the one I'd been following, its driver turned to look back at me. I saw her face in profile. It was my face, but not quite. The proportions were wrong. The eyes were too large, the mouth too wide. Like someone had described me to an artist who'd never seen a human before, and they'd done their best approximation. All the drivers in all the trucks ahead turned to look back at the same moment. 14 faces, all mine, all wrong. Some had necks that bent at angles necks shouldn't bend. Some had too many teeth visible in their smiles. One was inside out, the red muscle and white bone arranged in a Patricia-shaped configuration. I slammed my foot on the brake with every ounce of strength I had. The truck shuddered. The trailer jackknifed slightly, and for one glorious second I felt the vehicle slow. Then my foot was ripped off the brake. Not physically, but my legs simply stopped obeying me. The accelerator went down again. 98 miles per hour. The trucks ahead began to change, their trailers elongated, stretching like taffy. The refrigerated boxes becoming impossibly long. Or maybe the distance between us was shrinking while appearing to stay the same. Space wasn't working correctly. The truck immediately in front of me was still exactly 40 feet away, but I could also somehow see inside it clearly. See the wrong Patricia gripping her steering wheel. See the CB radio in her cab. See the coffee cup in her holder still steaming. I looked at my own coffee cup. It was empty. I'd finished it an hour ago. But in my mirror I could see the truck behind me, see inside its cab, see a Patricia thing holding a coffee cup that was full. The one ahead had a half-full cup. I looked at trucks further back and further forward. The coffee cups showed different levels, like frames of a time-lapse video spread across space. We were all the same moment, happening in sequence. The highway exit signs started appearing more frequently. Exit 109, then immediately exit 110. Then 111, 112, 113, each one flashing past within seconds of the last. The mile markers became a blur, the numbers stopped making sense. Mile 317, mile 319, mile 316, mile 321. We were racing forward through geography that was folding in on itself. Then I saw the thing waiting on the side of the road. It was shaped like a man, but it was made of exit signs, stop signs, mile markers, speed limit signs, all welded together into a humanoid form 15 feet tall, standing in the grass between the highway and an access road. Its head was a yield sign. Its body was covered with reflective letters and numbers. It raised one arm as we passed, all of us, all 15 trucks passing it simultaneously, even though we were spread across what should have been 2 miles of highway. The radio spoke in a voice that was definitely not mine. Convoy collected, route complete, processing drivers. My hands turned the steering wheel hard to the right, not toward the shoulder, through it. The Peterbilt's front wheels left the pavement, hit grass, and kept going. We drove straight into the black prairie. All 15 trucks left the highway in unison, none of us in control, all of us passengers in our own bodies. There was no off-roading sensation, no bumping over rough terrain. The prairie was smooth as asphalt. My headlights showed nothing but darkness and flat land, but we were clearly following some kind of path because the steering wheel moved in my hands, making gentle corrections, guiding me somewhere. The trucks began to converge. The ones that had been ahead slowed and turned, falling back alongside me. The ones behind accelerated and spread out. We formed a circle, all 15 trucks facing inward toward a central point in the prairie. Our headlights illuminated each other in a ring of light. In the center stood another sign creature, bigger than the first, 20 feet tall. It was made of older signs, rusted metal, wooden posts, hand-painted warnings. I could read some of them. Bridge out, road closed, do not enter, dead end, no outlet. My door opened by itself. I tried to resist, but my seatbelt unclicked and my legs swung out of the cab. All 15 doors opened simultaneously. All 15 drivers climbed down. I looked at the others in the headlight glare. They were all me. Exact copies. Same height, same weight, same Schneider National jacket. Same scar on the left hand where I'd cut myself changing a trailer tire in Lexington 3 years ago. They all had it. We all had it. The sign creature spoke without moving, its voice emanating from the metal itself, a grinding sound like highway noise compressed into language. Duplicate route detected. Duplicate driver collected. Consolidation required. One of the Patricias stepped forward. I'm the real one, but her voice was uncertain. Another Patricia. No, I remember. But she stopped, unable to complete the thought. I tried to remember my daughter's name. Sarah. I had a daughter. Her birthday was... The memory slipped away like trying to hold water. The delivery I was making. Frozen chicken to a warehouse in... The destination evaporated from my mind. The sign creature raised both arms. The exit signs and mile markers that formed its body began to glow with that same reflective light that shines when headlights hit them. All 15 of us started walking toward it. Not voluntarily. Our legs moved in sync, marching toward the center. As the first Patricia reached the creature, it placed a sign hand on her head. She began to dissolve, not violently, quietly. Her solid form became translucent, then transparent, then just a shimmer in the air, then nothing. The creature seemed to brighten slightly, like it had absorbed her. I tried to scream, but my voice wouldn't work. One by one, my copies, or was I their copy, reached the creature and dissolved. 8 left, 7, 6. I was 5th in line now. The Patricia ahead of me was crying silently, tears running down her face that matched my face that might not be my face at all. 4, 3, 2. The Patricia directly in front of me turned and looked at me. I don't want to stop existing, she whispered. Then she was gone. My turn. I stood before the sign creature. Up close, I could read more of the signs that composed it. Some were in languages I didn't recognize. Some had dates, 1952, 1973, 1891, 2003, 1847. Some had names carved into them, driver names maybe, previous consolidations. The creature's hand descended toward my head. I felt cold metal press against my scalp, and then I'm in my truck, driving, Interstate 40. The clock says 2:47 a.m. I'm somewhere between Amarillo and Oklahoma City. The highway is empty. My reefer unit hums. Everything is normal. I check my mirror and see a truck behind me. White Peterbilt 579. I squint to read the license plate in my mirror's reflection. X7J9R4, my plates. The CB radio crackles with my voice. Exit 92 coming up in 14 miles. I haven't said anything. My hands are gripping the steering wheel so hard they're white. There's something I'm supposed to remember, something about stopping, something about exits. The memory is there, just out of reach, like a word on the tip of your tongue. I'll figure it out. I've got time. Plenty of highway ahead. I check my mirror again. Now there are 2 trucks behind me. Both have my license plate. Story 2. The weight station. The weight station scale read 134,567 pounds when I drove onto it, which was impossible because my truck and fully loaded trailer couldn't weigh more than 78,000 pounds even if I'd packed it with lead bricks. The digital display flickered, then settled on the number, and somewhere inside the weathered building a printer began chattering. Marcus Chen, that's me. 29 years old, been driving for Crete Carrier for 5 years, never had a violation, never had an accident. I'm the guy who checks his load distribution twice, who keeps his logs perfect, who treats DOT inspections like college finals. But that scale was telling me I was carrying an extra 56,567 pounds of something. The weight station sat on I-80 in western Nebraska, mile marker 34, about 40 miles east of Cheyenne. March 19, 2023, exactly 4:13 a.m. I remember the exact time because I'd glanced at my phone right before the scale, thinking about whether to call my girlfriend when I reached North Platte. The building was a squat concrete structure built in the 1970s, surrounded by empty prairie and a gravel lot that never quite looked level. The red open light was illuminated, unusual for this time of morning in the off-season, so I'd followed the painted arrows onto the scale platform like I'd done hundreds of times before. A voice crackled over the loudspeaker. Proceed to Inspection Bay 3. I'd never been to Inspection Bay 3. This weight station only had 2 bays. I pulled forward slowly, following the signs. Bay 1, Bay 2, and then somehow Bay 3, even though it occupied the same physical space where the building's wall should have ended. The door was open, and yellow fluorescent light spilled out onto the gravel. I eased my Freightliner Cascadia into position and set the air brakes. The hiss seemed too loud in the pre-dawn silence. An inspector walked out. He was wearing the standard DOT uniform, brown shirt, badge, clipboard. But his name tag was wrong. Not wrong like misspelled, wrong like the letters weren't quite letters. They shifted when I tried to focus on them, forming shapes that suggested language without actually being words I could read. Random inspection, he said. His voice was normal, Midwestern accent, slightly nasal, bored tone of a man who'd done this job too long. Pop your trailer doors. I climbed down and walked back to the trailer. The seals were intact. I'd picked up this load in Sacramento yesterday. Sealed container of machine parts headed to a manufacturer in Pennsylvania. Standard freight, nothing unusual. I broke the seal and swung open the doors. The trailer was empty. What the? I stepped closer, shining my flashlight inside. Completely empty. 53 feet of vacant aluminum space. The machine parts were gone. 22 pallets, 48,000 pounds of industrial equipment just gone. The inspector made a note on his clipboard. Step inside the trailer, please. I need to call my dispatcher. Something's happened to my load. I need to step inside the trailer. Not a request this time. I climbed up into the empty container. My footsteps echoed. The inspector followed me inside, and the moment he crossed the threshold, the trailer doors slammed shut. Total darkness. I fumbled for my flashlight, but before I found it, lights came on. But we weren't in my trailer anymore. We were in a warehouse, vast, extending in every direction farther than my flashlight beam could reach. The floor was still the aluminum of a trailer, but it went on forever. Above, the ceiling was lost in shadows. Around us, stacked in perfect rows, were hundreds, thousands of identical cardboard boxes. "What is this?" My voice came out higher than normal. The inspector consulted his clipboard. "Weight discrepancy verification. The boxes need to be counted." Each box was identical. 3 feet square, brown cardboard, no labels. "How many are there?" "You brought them. You count them." "I didn't bring these. I was carrying machine parts. I had a sealed load from 134,567 pounds, the inspector interrupted. "That's 67,283 boxes at 2 pounds per box, plus the weight of your vehicle. The math is correct. Count them." He handed me the clipboard. It had a single sheet of paper with 67,283 checkboxes on it. The boxes were microscopically small, but I could see every single one, the paper somehow containing impossible detail. My brain hurt looking at it. I'm not counting 67,000 boxes. The inspector's face didn't change, but his eyes did. They became too large, the pupils expanding until the entire eye was black. "You transport the cargo, you verify the cargo, you deliver the cargo, count them." A phone rang. Not my cell phone, that was in the truck in my pocket, turned off. This was the sound of an old landline echoing through the warehouse. I turned and saw a desk 20 feet away. It hadn't been there a moment ago. On it sat a rotary phone, olive green, the handset jumping in its cradle with each ring. I looked at the inspector. His eyes were normal again, brown and tired. "You should answer that." I walked to the desk. The phone rang 7 times before I picked it up. "Hello?" "Sweetie, it's Mom," my mother's voice. But my mom had died in 2019, ovarian cancer. I'd driven straight from Des Moines to Portland for the funeral. "Mom?" My hand shook on the handset. "You need to come home. Your father's made pot roast. We're waiting for you." The same thing she used to say when I was a teenager, calling me in from wherever I was playing. "Mom, this isn't..." "We're waiting, Marcus. We've been waiting so long. Why won't you come home?" I slammed the phone down. It immediately rang again. I stepped away from the desk. It kept ringing. The inspector watched me, making notes on his clipboard. "I'm leaving," I said, "after you count the cargo." "I'm not counting anything. I'm getting in my truck and leaving." I walked back toward where the trailer doors should be. The warehouse stretched endlessly in that direction. I walked faster, started jogging. The rows of boxes became a blur on either side. The phone kept ringing behind me, getting louder instead of softer, despite the distance I was covering. I ran for what felt like 10 minutes, my breath coming in gasps, before I admitted to myself that I wasn't getting any closer to anything. The warehouse had no end. I stopped, hands on knees, panting. "You can't leave until the inspection is complete." The inspector's voice came from right behind me, though I'd left him hundreds of yards back. He was standing there, clipboard ready, eyes black again. "What do you want?" "Count the boxes." Fine, I'll count your boxes." Maybe if I played along, I could find a way out. I approached the nearest stack. The boxes were perfectly arranged, 5 high, forming a wall. I reached for the top box. It was heavier than I expected, more than 2 pounds. Much more. I set it down and opened the flaps. Inside was a smaller version of my trailer. A perfect scale model, about 2 feet long, aluminum walls, even tiny working doors on the back. I picked it up. It had weight to it. Substantial weight. I opened the tiny trailer doors. Inside were microscopic boxes, hundreds of them. I grabbed a magnifying glass that was suddenly hanging from my belt when had that gotten there, and examined the tiny boxes. Each was a perfect replica of the larger boxes. "No," I whispered. "Count them," the inspector said. "All of them." I opened another of the regular-sized boxes, another tiny trailer full of tinier boxes. I opened a third, a fourth. Every box contained a trailer full of smaller boxes. This would be infinite. I can't count infinite boxes. You transported them. They were in your trailer. Your responsibility. The phone rang again. I ignored it, opened another box, another tiny trailer. I started laughing, not from humor, from the sheer impossibility of what I was being asked to do. How did they even get in my trailer? This doesn't make any physical sense. You stopped at the weight station at mile marker 34. You drove onto the scale. The scale measured what you were carrying. The inspector's voice was patient, like explaining something to a slow child. 134,467 pounds of cargo. Would you like to know what the cargo is? What? Distance. He gestured around the warehouse. This is how far drivers have traveled on I-80 at this weight station. Every mile becomes a box. You've been driving for 5 years. Roughly 650,000 miles, you said in your interview when Crete Carrier hired you. Every mile leaves an impression. Every mile weighs something. You carry them all. I backed away from the boxes. That's insane. Is it? He flipped through papers on his clipboard. Exit 1, Pennsylvania, your first solo drive. You were terrified you'd miss a shift, so you kept one hand on the gear selector for 90 miles. Exit 68, Iowa. You hit a deer and cried because you'd never killed anything before. Mile marker 312, Nevada. You called your girlfriend and told her you loved her for the first time, but she didn't say it back. He looked up at me. Every mile is in these boxes. Every moment, every breath, every decision. You carried it all here. Now count it. The phone was still ringing. I walked to the desk and picked it up. Hello? Marcus? My girlfriend's voice, not my mom anymore. Marcus, where are you? You were supposed to be in North Platte 2 hours ago. I looked at my watch. It was still 4:13 a.m. The second hand wasn't moving. I'm at a weight station. They're making me... There's no weight station at mile marker 34, she said. I'm looking at Google Maps. There's nothing there, just empty prairie. I'm inside it right now. I'm talking to an inspector. I turned around. The inspector was gone. The warehouse was gone. I was standing in my trailer, my empty trailer. The doors were open and pale dawn light was filtering in. My phone was in my hand, call screen showing a 2-hour-old call to my girlfriend that I didn't remember making. I jumped down from the trailer. The weight station building was there, looking exactly as it had before. Squat, concrete, old. But the windows were dark. The open sign was off. The gravel lot was empty except for my truck. I checked my watch. 6:47 a.m. 3.5 hours had passed. I ran to the building and tried the door. Locked. I peered through the grimy windows. Empty interior, dust on the floor. It looked like it hadn't been used in years. My truck's scale ticket was tucked under the windshield wiper. I grabbed it. The weight read 78,245 pounds, normal, legal. The date was correct, March 19th. The timestamp said 4:13 a.m. Under inspector, there was a signature, but I couldn't read it. The letters weren't quite letters. I got in my truck and left. Drove straight to North Platte without stopping. Called my dispatcher, told him I'd been delayed, made up a story about tire trouble. He accepted it. I delivered to Pennsylvania 3 days later. The seals on my trailer were intact. When the receiving warehouse opened the doors, my machine parts were there, all 48,000 pounds of them. 22 pallets perfectly arranged exactly as they'd been loaded in Sacramento. Everything was normal. Everything was fine. Except Except when I sleep now, I dream about counting boxes. In the dreams, I'm still in that warehouse, opening box after box, finding tiny trailers, opening those, finding tinier boxes, opening those. The inspector stands behind me, patient, clipboard ready, telling me I can leave as soon as I finish counting. Sometimes I count for hours. Sometimes for years. I count until the numbers lose meaning, until I forget what counting is, until I forget my own name. And when I wake up, there's cardboard under my fingernails. I still drive I-80 regularly. My route takes me past mile marker 34 about twice a month. The weight station is there. I can see it from the highway, the concrete building, the scale, the gravel lot. Sometimes the open sign is on. Sometimes I see other trucks pulling in. Sometimes I see an inspector outside, clipboard in hand, waiting. I always drive past, always keep my speed steady, eyes forward, hands at 10 and 2. I never look at the trucks on the scale, never check my mirrors to see if they're still there after I pass. Last week I had a random dot inspection at a weight station in Ohio. Different station, different inspector, everything was normal. He checked my logs, examined my truck, verified my load, everything passed. As he handed back my paperwork, he asked, "You ever been to the weight station at mile marker 34 in Nebraska?" "No," I lied. He nodded. Didn't call me on the lie. Just said, "Good, don't." I've been trying to get reassigned to southern routes. Told my dispatcher I want to run I-10, I-20, anything that keeps me away from I-80. He's working on it. Meanwhile, I drive. I pass mile marker 34. I don't stop. But sometimes, late at night when I'm tired and the highway is empty, I feel my trailer getting heavier. The truck strains slightly on hills. The suspension sits lower. My fuel economy drops. And in those moments, I know the boxes are back there. All 67,283 of them, each containing a tiny trailer, each of those containing tinier boxes stacking down into infinity. Every mile weighs something, every moment leaves an impression. I carry them all, and eventually I'll have to stop and count them. The scale never lies. It measured what I was carrying, every mile, every memory, every piece of road I've ever driven. 134 to 567 pounds of distance, and it's getting heavier with every mile I drive. Next time I pass mile marker 34, the open sign is going to be on. I know it. And next time I don't think I'll be able to drive past. My truck will turn toward the scale on its own. The inspector will be waiting with his clipboard and his shifting name tag and his eyes that turn black. And I'll count. I'll count every box, open every tiny trailer, examine every microscopic package of distance and memory and time. I'll count until the numbers consume me, until I become just another item on a clipboard, another weight discrepancy, another driver who stopped at mile marker 34 and never quite left. The phone in that warehouse is still ringing. I can hear it sometimes when the radio is off and the highway is quiet. My mother's voice, my girlfriend's voice, my own voice, all asking the same thing. When are you coming home? When are you going to stop driving? When are you going to rest? Soon, Mom. Soon. Just a few more miles. Just a few more boxes to count. Just a little bit farther down this endless road. The scale is waiting. The inspector is waiting. The warehouse full of my own history is waiting. And sooner or later, every driver has to stop for inspection. Every driver has to verify their cargo. Every driver has to answer for the weight they carry. I'm just hoping that when my turn comes, when I finally pull onto that scale again and the numbers start climbing past what's possible, that someone else will answer the phone. Because I'm not picking it up again. I'm not listening to the voices of people who aren't there anymore, telling me to come home to places that don't exist. I'm just going to count my boxes. All of them, however long it takes, however impossible the task. I'll count until my fingers bleed and my voice gives out and my mind breaks. I'll count until I forget why I'm counting. I'll count until I become just another weight on someone else's scale. 34, 5, 67 pounds and getting heavier, mile by mile, box by box, forever. Story 3. The Drowning Highway. Water was seeping up through the asphalt at mile marker 178 on Route 20 in upstate New York, and when I stepped out of my cab to investigate, my boot sank 3 inches into pavement that had been solid 10 seconds earlier. Robert Hayes, that's me. 54 years old, gray beard, 26 years hauling everything from furniture to hazmat. I've driven through every state except Hawaii, seen every weird thing you can see from a truck cab, once delivered a load during the Mount St. Helens eruption in 2004, but I'd never seen a highway melt into water before. It was 9:34 p.m., October 7th, 2022. Autumn in New York, temperature around 45 degrees, clear sky with a half moon. I'd been making good time from Buffalo to Albany with a load of industrial carpet, 26,000 pounds of it, when my headlights caught the wet patch spreading across both lanes. At first I thought it was just water on the road, maybe a burst pipe, maybe runoff from the fields. But as I slowed down, I realized the water was coming from underneath, pushing up through cracks in the asphalt like the whole highway was sitting on top of a rising lake. I stopped about 30 feet from the wet area and grabbed my flashlight. The water was spreading fast, a dark pool expanding in every direction. Already it covered maybe 40 feet of road, edge to edge. I walked closer, shining my light on it. The surface was perfectly still, no ripples, no movement, and black as oil. My flashlight beam didn't penetrate it, just reflected off the surface like I was pointing at a mirror. That's when I noticed there was a truck in the water, not partially submerged, completely submerged. I could see the outline of a semi-cab and trailer about 10 feet below the surface, wavering in my flashlight beam. The truck was upright, like it had been driving along and the road had just liquefied beneath it. I stepped closer to the edge of the water. The asphalt at my feet was definitely wet now, my boots leaving prints in pavement that was slowly becoming mud. I grabbed my phone to call 911, no signal. I looked around. Route 20 out here is pretty empty at night. Farmland and forest, small towns every 10 miles or so. No houses visible from where I stood, no other traffic, just me, my truck, and this impossible pool of water that was eating the highway. The water was still spreading. I jogged back to my Kenworth and climbed in, intending to reverse away from the wet area. But when I looked in my mirrors, the water was behind me too. While I'd been examining the front, it had crept around my truck. I was on an island of dry asphalt maybe 15 feet across, surrounded by black water that reflected my trailer lights. I tried to drive forward anyway, put the truck in gear, eased off the clutch. My wheels hit the water and immediately lost all traction. It was like trying to drive on ice, worse than ice because ice has some friction, this had none. The truck slid sideways and I felt the horrible weightless sensation of the wheels not gripping anything solid. I braked hard. The truck stopped sliding but didn't move backward. I was stuck, sitting in water that had no business existing on a highway that had been dry and solid 5 minutes earlier. The radio crackled to life. I hadn't turned it on. A voice came through the static. Underwater mile marker 178, depth increasing, recommend immediate evacuation. Hello? I grabbed the CB handset. This is Robert Hayes. I'm stuck at mile marker 178 on Route 20. There's some kind of flooding here. I need assistance. Water level rising 3 feet per minute. The voice continued, ignoring me. All drivers advised to proceed to higher ground. Estimated time to complete submersion, 14 minutes. I looked at my door. Water was lapping at the bottom edge. In the minute I'd been sitting there, it had risen at least 6 inches. I could see it climbing the sides of my truck, could hear it starting to splash against the cab. 14 minutes. I threw open the door and climbed out. The water was now knee-deep. Cold, searingly cold, like it had come from the bottom of an Arctic ocean. My legs went numb almost instantly. I waded toward the back of my truck, thinking maybe I could climb on top of the trailer, get above the rising water. The submerged truck I'd seen earlier was rising. The cab broke the surface, water streaming off the windshield and hood. It emerged smoothly, like being lifted by some enormous mechanism underneath. When it cleared the surface completely, it just sat there, dripping, headlights still on underwater, casting a green glow through the dark water. The driver's door opened. A man climbed out, moving slowly, mechanically. He stood on the cab step, water pouring from his clothes, and turned to look directly at me. His skin was gray. His eyes were white, not the eyeballs, the entire eye, white as bone. When he opened his mouth, water gushed out, a steady stream like he was a punctured water balloon. "How long were you under?" he asked. His voice gurgled, drowned words forced through fluid-filled lungs. "I'm not under," I shouted back. "I just got here. I'm trying to—" "How long?" he repeated. "I've been under for 6 months. Drove through here in April, hit the wet patch, went down, never came up. How long for you?" The water was up to my waist now, rising steadily. My truck was sinking, the cab tilting forward as the front wheels settled into deeper water. I grabbed onto my trailer, pulling myself toward it. "I'm not going under. I'm getting out of here." The drowned driver laughed, and more water poured from his mouth. "That's what I said. That's what we all said." He gestured behind him. More trucks were rising from the depths, 5, 6, 7 cabs breaking the surface, each one dripping, each one with a driver who stood and stared with those white eyes. I hauled myself onto my trailer roof. The water was rising faster, not 3 feet per minute, faster than that. Already it was up to my truck's windows. The surface was still perfectly smooth, perfectly black, despite all the trucks emerging from below. It was like we were all suspended in liquid obsidian. "Welcome to the underwater mile," the first driver said. He and the others were wading toward me now, moving through the water with ease, like it wasn't cold, like they weren't dead. "This stretch of Route 20 doesn't exist on the surface anymore, hasn't for years. It's all down here now, 38 trucks so far, you're 39. This is insane." I looked for any sign of shore, any edge to the water. There wasn't one. In every direction, just flat black water extending to the horizon. The moon above looked distant and cold. The highway was solid. I was just driving on it. Was it? The driver tilted his head and water dribbled from his ear. "Or were you already underwater and just didn't notice? When did you last see another car? When did you last pass an exit sign? When did you last check your depth gauge? Trucks don't have depth gauges." "Exactly." He smiled. His teeth were covered in algae. "They do now." I looked at my dashboard, visible through my cab's back window. There was a new gauge I'd never seen before installed between the speedometer and the tachometer. It was marked in feet of depth. The needle pointed to 40 feet and rising. The water reached the top of my trailer. I was standing on a metal island that was shrinking by the second. "How do I get out? There has to be a way out." "Same way you got in. Keep driving." The drowned driver pointed ahead into the darkness. "The highway continues underwater. Mile marker 178, 179, 180, all the way to Albany. Just keep going. Eventually you'll reach shallow water again, or you'll run out of air, or you'll join us." "I'm not driving underwater. That's impossible." "You've been driving underwater for 3 miles already," he said. "You just didn't look down." I did look down then. Through the 6 inches of water still remaining between me and complete submersion, I could see my trailer's roof. And below that, visible through the water, I could see pavement. Highway lane markers, a yellow dividing line, mile marker 176 passing by beneath me. We were moving. My truck was moving, driving itself along the submerged highway. My engine somehow still running despite being 30 feet underwater. The CB radio was still crackling with that emergency broadcast. Water level at 45 feet and rising. Proceed to mile marker 185 for emergency surface access. The water closed over my head. I held my breath, instinct taking over even though I knew it was futile. But seconds passed and I didn't need to breathe. The water pressed against me from all sides, cold and heavy, but I wasn't drowning. I was just underwater, breathing underwater. Standing on top of my trailer 45 feet below the surface of an impossible ocean that had swallowed Route 20. The drowned drivers were all around me now, floating rather than standing, their white eyes reflecting my truck's lights. One drifted closer, a woman in a J.B. Hunt uniform. "I've been under for 2 years," she said, her voice clear despite the water. "I've driven to Albany 17 times, every time I think I'll surface. Every time I just end up back at mile marker 178, starting over." "There has to be a way out," I said. My voice sounded normal to my ears, but I could feel the water vibrating with the words. "There is," said another driver, an old man in a Schneider cap. "Stop driving. Let yourself sink. Eventually you'll hit bottom. The real bottom, not this fake highway. And from there, maybe you can walk out." "How deep is the real bottom?" "Don't know. Deepest any of us has gone is 300 feet. At that depth, the highway gets weird. The lane markers start pointing down instead of forward. The exit signs are all upside down. And there are things moving in the water. Big things." I looked at my depth gauge, 50 feet, still descending. My truck was driving steadily along the submerged highway, following the white lines like I'd never left the surface. Through my windshield, I could see the road ahead, illuminated by my headlights cutting through murky water. Mile marker 179 drifted past. What if I just get in my cab and drive? Drive until I reach Albany? The drowned drivers exchanged glances. The first one, the man with algae teeth, said, "You can try. We all tried. The highway goes on forever down here. Albany never gets closer. You'll just drive and drive and drive, watching the mile markers count up, but you'll never reach marker 200, never reach 250, never reach anywhere. The road becomes a loop. You'll end up back at 178 and the whole thing starts again." I climbed down from my trailer and pulled open my cab door. Water rushed in, but it didn't matter. Everything was already submerged. I climbed into my seat, buckled up, and grabbed the steering wheel. The engine was running smoothly, the dashboard lights all normal except for that impossible depth gauge. 55 feet now. "I'm driving out of here," I said. The drowned drivers floated around my truck, watching with their white eyes. "Good luck," the woman said. "We'll be here when you come back." I put the truck in gear and pressed the accelerator. The truck moved forward smoothly, too smoothly. No resistance from the water. The steering worked normally. The road ahead was visible, marked with faded lane lines and occasional reflective markers. It looked exactly like driving at night except for the water pressing against the windows and the complete absence of any land or sky. Mile marker 180 passed, then 181, 182. I was making progress. The depth gauge read 60 feet. The road was descending, but I was moving forward. Albany was 80 miles from where I'd entered the water. At 60 miles per hour, I'd be there in an hour and 20 minutes. At mile marker 185, there was a sign, "Emergency Surface Access, 2 miles." An arrow pointed to an exit ramp that spiraled upward into darker water. I took it. The truck climbed the ramp and the depth gauge needle started dropping. 55 feet. 50. 45. The water was getting lighter, less murky. I could see the surface above me, a rippling mirror that promised air and reality. 40 feet, 35, almost there. I pressed the accelerator harder, urging the truck upward, 30 feet, 25. I could see the moon through the water, 20 feet, 15. My front wheels broke the surface. Water streamed off the hood. The windshield cleared. I could see sky, blessed, empty sky. 10 feet, 5. The entire truck erupted from the water like a breaching whale. For one glorious moment, I was airborne, suspended between the underwater world and the real one. I could see the highway ahead, dry and solid, stretching away into normal October darkness. Then I hit the water again, not descended back into it, hit a new patch of water. My truck crashed down into another flooded section of Route 20 and the depth gauge immediately read 40 feet. I looked in my mirrors. Mile marker 178 was right behind me. I was back where I started. I tried the emergency access ramp again. Same result. Surfaced, flew through the air, crashed down into water at mile marker 178. I tried driving straight through, ignoring the exit. Mile marker 183, 184, 185, 186, then suddenly 178 again, the road looping back on itself. I tried driving backwards. The mile markers counted down, 177, 176, 175, but when I reached 174, it suddenly became 178 again. Every path led back to mile marker 178. Every attempt to surface lasted exactly 3 seconds before I was underwater again. The highway was a closed loop, a figure 8 of submerged asphalt that had no connection to the real world above. I've been driving for what feels like 3 hours now, but my clock still says 9:47 p.m. 13 minutes have passed since I first hit the water. 13 minutes stuck in an endless loop of underwater highway, surrounded by drowned drivers who watch my every attempt to escape with knowing, pitying expressions. The depth gauge reads 90 feet now. The truck has been slowly sinking even while driving. The Schneider driver's warning echoes in my head. At depth, the highway gets weird. I'm seeing what he meant. The lane markers are tilting, pointing down at increasing angles. The latest mile marker read 178, with the arrow pointing straight down into deeper darkness. I can see things moving in the water below the road now. Large shapes bigger than trucks gliding through the murky depths. Sometimes they pass underneath my wheels and I feel the truck rise slightly on their backs. Sometimes they surface briefly and I catch glimpses of forms that don't make biological sense. Too many fins, too many eyes, bodies that twist in directions bodies shouldn't twist. The radio has changed its message. Approaching terminal depth. Recommends cessation of resistance. Joining the underwater fleet is inevitable. Welcome home. The drowned drivers are following me now. A convoy of dead truckers in sunken cabs trailing my endless journey through the loop. Every time I pass mile marker 178, there are more of them. Not the same 7. New ones, older ones, trucks from decades ago. I saw a truck from the 1970s pass me going the opposite direction. Its driver nothing but bones behind the wheel, still gripping the wheel, still driving his eternal route. The depth gauge reads 120 feet. The road is almost vertical now, spiraling down into darkness. My truck is descending and I can't stop it. The wheel won't turn. The brakes don't work. I'm just a passenger in my own cab, sinking deeper into an ocean that exists inside a highway that shouldn't have water in the first place. At 150 feet, the highway ends. Just stops. The lane markers simply cease, and beyond is only darkness and the suggestion of vast, empty space. My truck is still descending, but slowly now, drifting down like a leaf falling through syrup. The largest of the shapes below rises to meet me. I can see it clearly now in my headlights. It's made of highway, miles of Route 20, twisted and folded and compressed into a massive serpentine form. Asphalt scales, lane marker teeth, guardrail fins. It opens its mouth, a tunnel lined with exit signs instead of teeth. And I understand. The highway didn't flood. The highway became water, became this, became a living thing that swallowed Route 20 between Buffalo and Albany, digested it, transformed it into this underwater realm where trucks and drivers circle forever in its belly. My truck drifts into the mouth, into the tunnel. Inside, I can see other trucks suspended in the walls like flies in amber, their drivers still gripping wheels, still staring ahead, still waiting for their routes to end. I'll join them. I already have. The moment I hit that wet patch at mile marker 178, I stopped being Robert Hayes' long-haul trucker. I became just another piece of cargo in the underwater mile's endless digestive system. My depth gauge reads 200 feet, 250, 300. The numbers keep climbing, but I've stopped sinking. I'm hovering now, suspended in the highway creature's stomach, watching other trucks drift past like plankton. My clock still says 9:47 p.m., October 7th, 2022, 13 minutes since I stopped. 13 minutes that will last forever. Sometimes I see the surface far above, a pale hint of light. Sometimes I think I hear other drivers on the CB, normal drivers on the normal Route 20, complaining about traffic or weather or bad coffee. They're driving right over me, right over all of us, over the underwater mile that exists beneath their wheels. They don't know we're here. They don't know they're inches away from breaking through, from joining us. But sometimes a driver hits a wet patch. Sometimes they slow down. Sometimes they stop. And sometimes they don't start moving again and the wet patch spreads and another truck joins the underwater fleet. I'm waiting for them. We all are. Down here in the dark, in the deep, on a highway that leads nowhere but down. Mile marker 178. Depth infinite. Time 9:47 p.m. forever. Keep driving. Don't stop for water on the road. Don't investigate. Don't trust your depth gauge. And if you're on Route 20 in upstate New York around mile marker 178 and you see a wet patch spreading across the asphalt, just drive through it quickly. Don't slow down. Don't think about what's underneath. Because we're down here, me and all the others, circling in the dark, waiting for the loop to break, waiting for the surface, waiting for a way home that doesn't exist. Still waiting, still driving, still sinking. 9:47 p.m. Mile marker 178. Forever. Story 4, The Passenger Manifest. The woman in my passenger seat had been dead for 6 days, according to the date on her hospital wristband, but she kept asking me to turn up the heat. Jennifer Kowalski, that's me, 36 years old, hauling for Werner Enterprises, 7 years on the road, usually running Midwest regional routes. March 3rd, 2023, 11:52 p.m. Northbound on Highway 63 through rural Missouri, 23 miles south of Rolla. She'd flagged me down at a rest stop, this woman, looking pale and shivering, asking for a ride to the hospital in Columbia. Her wristband said she'd been admitted to Columbia Regional on February 25th. It was now March 3rd. The wristband also had a red sticker on it that read, "Deceased." I didn't notice the sticker until we'd been driving for 10 minutes. "Could you turn up the heat?" she asked again. Her voice was hoarse, weak. She was wearing a hospital gown under a thin jacket that looked like it had been pulled from a donation bin. No shoes. Her feet were gray. "Yeah, sure." I adjusted the thermostat. The cab was already at 78 degrees. I was sweating through my flannel shirt, but I turned it up anyway. "So, you said you needed to get to the hospital?" "I never left," she said. She was staring straight ahead at the road, not blinking. "I'm still there, room 437, 4th floor, but I'm also here. I don't understand it either." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Ma'am, I saw your wristband. It says—" "I know what it says." She turned to look at me for the first time. Her eyes were clouded, the milky white of severe cataracts. Except she was maybe 30 years old, too young for eyes like that. "Pneumonia. It got bad fast. I remember the doctors talking, remember the ventilator, remember my sister crying. Then I was standing at that rest stop, freezing, and you stopped. I should have told her to get out. Should have stopped the truck right there on the shoulder and made her leave. But something in her voice, the exhausted resignation, the confusion, made me keep driving. What do you remember between the hospital and the rest stop? Walking, just walking. It was dark and I was cold and I kept seeing headlights, but nobody would stop. I walked for... She frowned, trying to remember. Days, weeks. The sun never came up. It stayed night the whole time. Then you stopped. I glanced at my phone mount. No signal. Not unusual in rural Missouri, but the timing felt wrong. I'd had full bars 5 minutes ago. I'm going to take you to the hospital. They'll figure this out. I told you I'm already there. Room 437, my body's there. This... She gestured at herself. I don't know what this is. We drove in silence for a few minutes. The highway was empty. Hadn't seen another vehicle since I'd left the rest stop. Highway 63 is usually pretty quiet at midnight, but this felt different. Too quiet. Too empty. The darkness outside my headlights seemed thicker than normal, like the light couldn't penetrate as far. You haul a lot of passengers? The woman asked. What? No, I'm freight only. I shouldn't even have picked you up, company policy, but you looked like you needed help. Check your trailer, she said. You might be surprised. I'm hauling paper goods, 26,000 pounds of paper towels and toilet paper headed to a distribution center in Hannibal. Check anyway. Something in her tone made me uneasy. I pulled up my ELD data on the tablet mounted to my dash. Load weight was showing wrong. Instead of 26,000 pounds, it read 147,923 pounds. That was impossible. My truck couldn't even move with that much weight. I looked at the woman. She was still staring ahead, not blinking. What's in my trailer? Same thing that's always in your trailer, Jennifer. You just never looked before. I pulled over. The shoulder was gravel crunching under my tires as I braked. I'm checking the load. You should, she agreed. I grabbed my flashlight and climbed down. The night air hit me like a physical force, not cold, not warm, just wrong. It had texture, that air, like I was breathing syrup. My flashlight beam looked thin, barely illuminating 5 feet in front of me. I walked back to the trailer. My seals were intact. I'd checked them personally when I loaded in St. Louis 8 hours ago. Standard paper goods stacked on pallets, shrink-wrapped, nothing unusual. I broke the seal and opened the door. The trailer was full of people. They were standing, packed shoulder to shoulder, filling every available space from floor to ceiling. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. The trailer seemed to extend farther back than 53 feet, the interior vanishing into darkness my flashlight couldn't penetrate. They were all wearing hospital gowns. All had wristbands. All had their eyes closed. I stumbled backward, almost falling. What the fuck? Your manifest, the woman called from the cab. Check your manifest. I ran back to the cab, hands shaking, pulled up my shipping documents on the tablet. The bill of lading had changed. Instead of paper goods, it listed passenger transport. Origin, various medical facilities. Destination, terminal point. Number of passengers, 1847. I didn't load these people. I loaded paper towels. I watched them get loaded. The woman finally blinked. Once, slowly. You load what you see, but you transport what's really there. Every trucker does. Most just never check. I looked at the trailer in my mirrors. From outside, it looked normal. Standard white refrigerated trailer, Werner Enterprises logo on the side. But I'd seen inside. I knew what was really there. Where am I supposed to be taking them? Terminal point. It's on your GPS now. I looked. There was a waypoint added to my route. Terminal point, 47 miles. But the GPS showed it in the middle of nowhere, 50 miles north of any town, in the Mark Twain National Forest. No roads led to it on the map. Just a point in empty space. What happens when I get there? You drop off your passengers, then you go back and pick up more. That's the job, Jennifer. That's what the job always was. I put the truck in gear. My hands moved automatically, muscle memory from 7 years of driving. But my mind was screaming. I never signed up for this. I haul freight, normal freight. Everyone hauls passengers eventually, the woman said. The company doesn't tell you because you wouldn't believe it until you see it yourself. But look at your employment contract, page 47, small print. Driver agrees to transport any and all cargo assigned, living or deceased, to designated terminals. I didn't remember page 47, didn't remember signing anything like that. But I also didn't remember the last time I'd actually read my employment contract. The GPS said 39 miles to Terminal Point. The highway had changed. The pavement was darker, the lane markers less distinct. I hadn't seen a mile marker in 10 minutes. What are you people? I asked the woman. Passengers. We're between places, between where we died and where we're going. This truck, all trucks eventually, becomes the vehicle that takes us there. Where? She shrugged. Terminal Point. I'll find out when you drop me off. So will you eventually. Eventually? Every driver who hauls this route ends up in the back of someone else's truck sooner or later. That's how the system works. You transport the dead until you become one of them. Then someone else transports you. The highway never ends. The route just keeps going. 27 miles to Terminal Point. Other trucks were appearing on the highway now, passing in the opposite direction. I could see inside their cabs, drivers gripping wheels with white knuckles, passengers in hospital gowns, sitting in their passenger seats. One driver met my eyes as we passed. Her expression was exhausted, haunted, but also resigned. She'd been doing this a long time. How many loads have I already done? I asked. Loads like this? Check your logbook, real logbook, not the ELD. I pulled out my paper logbook from under the seat. I kept it as backup, force of habit from my first company that required physical logs. I flipped through the pages. My regular entries were there. St. Louis to Hannibal, Kansas City to Des Moines, normal routes. But in the margins, in handwriting that looked like mine but shakier, were other entries. Transport complete, 847 passengers, Terminal Point. Transport complete, 203 passengers, Terminal Point. Transport complete, 924 passengers, Terminal Point. Dozens of entries, covering the last 3 years. I don't remember any of these. You do now, the woman said. Every time you complete a transport, they let you forget. Let you think you're hauling normal freight. But somewhere in your mind, you know, you've always known. Why do you think you dream about empty hospital corridors? Why do you think you wake up sometimes and taste embalming fluid? She was right. I'd had those dreams for years. And the taste, I'd blamed it on weird truck stop food, but it had been constant, subtle, chemical. 15 miles to Terminal Point. Can I refuse? Can I just turn around? You can try. Some drivers try. But the passengers need to reach Terminal Point. They can't move on until they get there. If you refuse, you'll just keep seeing them. At every rest stop, every truck stop, every time you close your eyes, they'll be standing there waiting, asking for a ride. Eventually, you'll pick them up. Everyone does. 8 miles. The forest was closing in on both sides of the highway now, trees pressed close to the shoulder. But they were wrong trees. Too tall, too thin. Trunks bent at angles that suggested pain rather than growth. My headlights caught glimpses of movement between them. Figures in hospital gowns walking parallel to the highway, keeping pace with my truck despite my 60-mile-per-hour speed. They're excited, the woman said. They've been waiting a long time. Some of them have been walking since before you were born, before trucks were invented. They used to wait for covered wagons, for trains, for whatever vehicle could carry them. Now they wait for trucks. 3 miles. The GPS showed the road ending ahead, just stopping in the middle of the forest. But I could see something through my windshield. Lights, not street lights or building lights. A glow like dawn, but localized to one spot in the darkness. Terminal point, the woman said. You can see it now. Not everyone can. Means you're close to your own transport. My own. I'm not dead. Not yet, but you're on the route. Once you drive this highway, you're always on the route, even when you think you're driving to Hannibal or Des Moines or anywhere normal. Part of you is always headed to terminal point. 1 mile. The highway became a dirt road, but my truck drove smoothly. No bouncing, no resistance. The trees opened into a clearing. In the center was a building. No, not a building. A terminal. It looked like a bus station or a small airport, all glass and metal. Impossible architecture that curved in ways buildings shouldn't curve. The glow came from inside, warm and inviting. I stopped the truck. The terminal was maybe 50 yards away. Back up to the loading dock, the woman instructed. Bay 17, that's your assigned bay. I did. My hands worked the controls automatically, backing the trailer perfectly into place despite never having been here before. The moment the trailer connected with the dock, I felt it lighten. The weight dropping from 147,023 pounds to nothing. They're unloading, the woman said. She opened the passenger door. My turn. Wait, what happens to them in there? She paused, 1 foot out of the cab. They move on, to whatever's next. Better than wandering the highways forever. She smiled. It was a sad smile, but also relieved. Thank you for the ride, Jennifer. You'll be a good driver until it's your turn. She climbed down and walked toward the terminal. As she approached the doors, her hospital gown became cleaner, her skin less gray. By the time she reached the entrance, she looked healthy, alive. She turned and waved once, then disappeared inside. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes watching the terminal. Other trucks were arriving, backing into other bays. Other passengers were walking from the trucks to the terminal, their conditions improving with every step. Old becoming young, injured becoming whole, dead becoming something else. My tablet beeped. New load assignment. Return to Highway 63, proceed to St. Louis Medical Center. Pick up next manifest. 2,134 passengers waiting. I pulled away from terminal point. The terminal disappeared in my mirrors immediately, like it had never been there. The dirt road became asphalt again. Highway 63 stretched ahead, normal and empty. My GPS showed the route to St. Louis. 4 hours. I'd arrive just before dawn. I'd back up to a loading dock at the medical center, and I'd leave thinking I was hauling paper goods or machine parts or whatever freight I was scheduled for. I wouldn't remember the passengers, wouldn't remember terminal point. Until the next time. I've been driving for 7 years. How many transports have I actually done? The logbook margins are filled with entries, but they stop 6 months. Ago, the last entry. Transport complete, 1847 passengers, terminal point. Today's date, today's load, time's looping. Or I'm remembering forward, or the route is circular in ways I can't understand. I'm on Highway 63 now, heading back south. It's 11:52 p.m. I've been driving for what feels like hours, but my clock says it's still 11:52. The rest stop where I picked up the woman is ahead. I can see a figure standing under the lights, pale and shivering, wearing a hospital gown and a thin jacket. It's me. I'm standing there, thumb out, waiting for a ride. I can see my own face in the rest stop lights. I'm wearing a hospital wristband, red sticker, deceased. I'm driving toward myself. I'm going to stop. I'm going to give myself a ride. I'm going to explain about terminal point, about the passengers, about the route that never ends. And then I'm going to climb into my own passenger seat, and I'm going to ask myself to turn up the heat. The highway is a loop. The route is circular. Every driver becomes cargo eventually. Every passenger was a driver once. We all end up in the trailer, packed shoulder to shoulder, wearing hospital gowns, waiting to reach terminal point. I'm pulling over. My other self is walking toward the truck. She looks cold. She looks confused. She looks like she needs help. I reach across and open the passenger door. Need a ride? I ask myself. I never left, I answer. I'm still in the hospital, room 437, but I'm also here. And we drive. We drive toward terminal point. We drive toward the terminal where passengers become something else. We drive until it's time to unload. We drive until it's time to load up again. We drive forever on Highway 63 between death and wherever comes next. Check your trailer sometime. Check what you're really hauling. You might be surprised what's back there waiting in the dark, hoping to reach terminal point. We're all passengers eventually. We're all cargo in the end. The highway takes everyone. The route never stops. And terminal point is always exactly 47 miles away, no matter how far you drive. Keep your eyes on the road. Keep your hands at 10 and 2. Keep moving toward your destination. And if you see someone hitchhiking at a rest stop, someone wearing a hospital gown and a red sticker wristband, someone who looks like they died 6 days ago, pick them up. Give them a ride. They've been walking for so long, they're so cold. They just need to reach terminal point. We all do eventually. 11:52 p.m. Highway 63, 47 miles to go forever. Story 5, the CB channel that counts down. Channel 19 was dead, nothing but static, so I switched to Channel 17 and heard someone counting backwards from 10,000. The voice was mechanical, precise, emotionless. 9,947, 9,946, 9,945. Till continued without pause, without breath, each number enunciated perfectly. Carl Winters, that's me, 61 years old, been driving since 1984, survived 3 bankruptcies of different trucking companies, currently running independent for whoever pays. April 11, 2023, 3:18 a.m. Westbound on I-90 through South Dakota, hauling used restaurant equipment from Minneapolis to Billings. I listened to the countdown for maybe 30 seconds, then tried to switch channels. The CB wouldn't respond. Every channel, 1 through 40, played the same countdown, same voice, same relentless descent through numbers. 9,912, 9,911. I turned off the CB. The countdown continued, now coming from my truck's speakers. Same voice, same volume, impossible because my CB and my stereo were separate systems. I turned off the stereo. The countdown came from everywhere. The vents, the seats, the walls of the cab. Not louder, just present, like the truck itself was speaking. 9,833. I pulled over at a rest area near mile marker 212. The parking lot was empty except for one other truck, a battered freightliner from some company I didn't recognize. Lights off, looking abandoned. I climbed out into the April night, thinking distance from my cab would stop the countdown. It didn't. The voice continued from the air around me. 9,801, 9,800. I walked to the rest area building, locked, lights off inside. The vending machines were dark. There was a posted schedule saying the facilities closed at 11 p.m. I'd stopped here dozens of times and they'd never been closed. The other truck's driver's side door opened. A man climbed down, moving stiffly like someone who'd been sitting too long. He was maybe 40, wearing a faded Cisco uniform. He walked toward me and I noticed his expression. Exhaustion mixed with something like relief. "You're hearing it too?" he called out. "The countdown? Yeah, every channel, every speaker. What the hell is it?" He reached me and I saw his eyes were bloodshot, deep circles underneath suggesting days without sleep. "How high was your number when it started?" 10,000 roughly. He nodded grimly. "That's where everyone starts. What's your number now?" I listened. 9,768. Mine's at 4,312. I've been hearing it for 6 days. He gestured at his truck. I can't leave, I've tried. Truck won't start. Every time I get more than 50 feet from it, I black out and wake up back in the cab. My stomach dropped. What happens when it reaches 0? Don't know. Haven't met anyone who heard it reach 0, but I've met other drivers. We compare numbers. Lower numbers seem to have less time. Less time for what? He pointed at his arm. He rolled up his sleeve. His skin was gray, mottled with dark patches, not bruises. Something worse, like parts of him were already dead. It's counting down to something bad. The lower the number gets, the worse I feel. 2 days ago, I was at 7,000. I could still drive, still think clearly. Now, he swayed slightly. Now I can barely stay awake. My lungs are weak. My heart keeps skipping beats. I'm dying, one number at a time. That's insane. This is some kind of prank, some— Check your skin, he interrupted. I looked at my hands. They seemed normal. Then I really looked. There on the back of my left hand, a small patch of gray. No bigger than a dime, but definitely there, definitely wrong. 9,729, the voice counted. We need to call someone, I said. Call 911, call al— No signal, look at your phone. I pulled it out. No bars. Emergency calls only, but when I tried that, nothing happened. Just ringing that went nowhere. It cut us off, the Cisco driver said. Whatever this is, it isolates you. I haven't seen another car on the highway since this started. Just trucks. Just other drivers who are hearing the countdown. There are more of us. 7 that I know of at different rest areas along I-90. We're all stuck, all counting down, all dying. There has to be a way to stop it, he laughed bitterly. You think I haven't tried? I've destroyed my CB radio, smashed every speaker in my truck, driven my rig into a ditch trying to escape. Nothing works. The voice doesn't come from technology, it comes from the road itself, from the distance. Every mile we drove is counting down to 0. 9,703. Wait, I said, trying to think through rising panic. If the numbers represent miles and we're all counting down, it's counting our driving distance, the miles we've logged? That's my theory. I've driven roughly 900,000 miles in my career. Started at 10,000, which would be the 10,000 most recent miles, like something's reversing my route mile by mile, taking back the distance I've covered. The gray patch on my hand was bigger. I could swear it had grown in the last minute. How do we stop it? Some of the other drivers think we have to drive forward, put new miles between us and where we've been. Others think we have to stop driving completely, refuse to add more miles. I don't know which is right. I'm too weak to drive now anyway. 9,681. I made a decision. I'm driving. I'm getting out of here, putting distance between me and this place. The Cisco driver grabbed my arm. His grip was weak. Don't. Every driver who's tried to leave, we lose contact with them. They stop answering when we call. I think something happens to them on the road, something worse than staying put. I pulled away. I can't just sit here and wait to reach 0. Then drive backwards. Reverse your route. If it's counting down your miles, maybe going backwards reverses the count. It was as good a theory as any. I ran to my truck, climbed in, started the engine. It turned over immediately. Unlike the Cisco driver's truck, mine worked fine. Maybe because my number was higher, maybe because I still had time. 9,647. I pulled out of the rest area, heading east back toward Minneapolis, retracing my route in reverse. The highway was empty, not just free-flowing, completely empty. No cars, no trucks, no signs of life. The mile markers ticked past. 212, 211, 210. 9,632. Not slowing down, if anything, counting down faster. The backward driving theory was wrong. I accelerated to 80, mile markers flew past. The countdown continued its relentless descent. 9,598. 9,597. The gray patches were spreading. I could see them on my arms now, both hands creeping toward my wrists. My chest felt tight. Each breath was harder than the last. At mile marker 187, I saw another truck parked on the shoulder. I slowed down. The driver was slumped over the wheel. I honked. No movement. I pulled in front of him, stopped, ran back to his cab. The driver was dead. Gray skin, eyes open and clouded, mouth frozen in a silent scream. His CB was on, the display showing channel 19. From his speakers, I could hear the countdown. 0, 0, 0. The voice repeated the word mechanly, endlessly. He'd reached the end of his count. I ran back to my truck. My own countdown was at 9,412, falling fast, too fast. I was losing more than one number per second now. The math didn't make sense. I wasn't driving fast enough to account for the acceleration. Unless it wasn't about physical distance anymore. Unless the countdown had its own momentum, its own hunger. 9,120, 9,119. I turned around again, heading west. Maybe the direction didn't matter. Maybe only the movement mattered. I pushed the truck to 90, then 95. The engine screamed in protest. My vision was graying at the edges, matching my skin. At mile marker 245, I saw a cluster of trucks parked in an unofficial pullout. 6 of them arranged in a rough circle, headlights pointing inward. I skidded to a stop and ran toward them. Drivers stood in the center of the circle, talking, arguing. All of them had gray skin. All of them looked like they were dying. One turned as I approached, a woman in a swift uniform, maybe 50 years old. "What's your number?" she called out. 8,741. "You're lucky, still high. Mine's at 2,000. Another driver, younger, XPO logistics cap. "We've been trying to figure it out. The countdown, what it means, how to stop it. We've got theories." "Forget theories," interrupted a third driver, older, Heartland Express jacket. "I've been at this for 8 days. My number started at 10,000. I'm down to 437. Whatever theories you have, they're wrong because I've tried everything." 8,690, my voice announced. The Swift driver explained. "We think it's a purge. The road is taking back its miles. Every mile we've driven extracts something from us. Usually it's so gradual we don't notice. But something's gone wrong. The extraction accelerated. Now it's taking everything at once. How do we stop it?" "We don't," said the Heartland driver. "We endure it. If the countdown is miles, then 10,000 miles later it stops. We just have to survive until it finishes counting." "But we're dying. Look at us." "Yes," he agreed calmly. "Some of us won't make it to 0, but maybe some will. Maybe the ones with strong constitutions or luck or whatever determines these things." "This is insane," I shouted. "There has to be an explanation, a logical—" My legs gave out. I collapsed, my body suddenly too heavy to support. The gray wasn't just patches anymore. It was spreading across my torso, my neck, my face. I could feel it consuming me from the inside. 8,412. The Swift driver knelt beside me. "Breathe. Stay conscious. The count is accelerating because you're panicking. The more afraid you are, the faster it consumes you." How is that possible?" "The miles, remember," she said. "Every mile you drove in fear and anger and sadness. They're coming back, collecting payment. The roads aren't free, they never were. We just didn't know the price." I forced myself to calm down, controlled my breathing. The gray stopped spreading but didn't recede. 7,981. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time felt unstable, stretching and compressing. The drivers told their stories. The Swift woman had been hearing the countdown for 4 days. The XPO driver for 3. The Heartland driver for 8, like he'd said. Others joined us. A Werner driver whose count was at 3,000, a Prime driver at 6,000. We were all dying, all gray, all counting down. The Werner driver was the first to reach 0 in our group. We watched it happen. His countdown reached single digits and he started seizing. 3, 2, 1, 0. His body arced backward, mouth open, and for just a moment I saw something, a dark shape, a shadow without a source, emerge from his mouth and drift upward. Then he collapsed, lifeless, and the shape disappeared into the night sky. The road took its payment, the Heartland driver said quietly. 6,137. My own countdown continued. More trucks arrived through the night. More drivers joined our circle. Some were at high numbers like mine. Some were in the hundreds, minutes from 0. We shared theories, desperate plans, and ultimately acceptance. This was happening. The road was collecting what we owed. At dawn, if it was dawn, the sky lightened slightly, but the sun never appeared. My count was at 4,500. I'd been standing in that circle for 6 hours. Half my miles consumed. The Heartland driver reached 0. He'd been the prophet of our group, the one who'd survived longest, who'd given us hope that endurance was possible. When his countdown ended, he didn't seize. He just sighed, smiled slightly, and stopped existing. One moment he was there, the next he was gone. Not dead. Gone. Erased. 3,890. The Swift driver was next. Then the XPO driver, then the Prime driver. One by one they reached 0. Some died, some vanished, some transformed into that shadow shape and drifted away. No pattern, no logic, just the road taking its payment in whatever form it chose. I was alone in the circle when my count reached 1,000. The sun still hadn't risen. The highway was still empty. My skin was almost entirely gray. I could barely stand. My lungs rattled with each breath. My heart beat irregularly, sometimes skipping 10 seconds between beats. 851. I thought about my life, 40 years of driving. Every highway, every route, every mile, I'd loved it. The freedom, the solitude, the endless motion. I'd never wanted to stop, never wanted to settle down. The road was my home. Now it was taking me back. 612. I wasn't afraid anymore, just tired. So tired. I sat down on the asphalt. The ground was cold, but I barely felt it. 438. Other trucks appeared in the distance. More drivers coming to join the circle. But they were too late. They'd face their countdowns alone. We'd given them our theories, our warnings, our stories. Maybe it would help them. Maybe not. 209. The gray reached my eyes. The world became colorless. I could still see, but everything was shades of gray, like watching an old television. 173. I lay down on my back, looking up at the sky. Still no sun. Just uniform gray clouds that had been there since the countdown started. 94. My heart stopped, restarted, stopped again. Each beat felt like lifting a massive weight. 56, 33, 17. I saw the shape emerging from me, the shadow without a source. It was made of roads, asphalt and concrete and painted lines, all woven together into something alive. It pulled free from my chest, and I felt my life going with it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 0. The voice stopped. I was standing on a road, not I-90, a different road, one I didn't recognize. It stretched endlessly in both directions, perfectly straight, perfectly maintained. No mile markers, no exits, no signs, just road. Other drivers were there, the ones who'd reached 0 before me. We were all gray, all translucent, all part of the road now. "Welcome," said the Heartland driver. He didn't have his truck anymore. None of us did. This is the highway beneath the highways, the road that all roads are built on. We drove on top of it our whole lives. Now we are it. I looked at my hands. They were fading, becoming asphalt. My skin was hardening into pavement. My veins were white paint, lane markers. My bones were aggregate and tar. What happens to us? I asked. We become the road, the swift driver answered. She was more pavement than person now, her lower half already transformed. Every mile we drove, we left a piece of ourselves on the road. Now the road is claiming the rest. We'll be part of it forever. Every truck that drives overhead will drive on us. Every mile logged will be logged on our bodies. I felt the transformation accelerate. My legs became asphalt, solid and cold. My torso followed. It didn't hurt. It was almost peaceful. I was becoming part of something eternal, something that would exist as long as people needed to travel. My last thought as my mind dissolved into aggregate. The countdown wasn't taking from us, it was taking us home, back to the road, back to where we'd always belonged. And now I'm here, beneath your wheels, part of I-90, part of every highway. The road that never ends. When you drive on us. When you count your miles, you count our transformed bodies. Every driver joins us eventually. Every mile logged is a mile owed. The countdown will find you. It will count your distance. And when it reaches 0, you'll join us here beneath the highways, part of the eternal road. Listen to your CB. Listen to the static. Can you hear it counting? Your countdown has already started. You just haven't noticed yet, but it's there, quiet beneath your wheels, waiting to announce itself. 9,999, 9,998. How many miles do you have left? Story 6. The truck stop that serves breakfast at midnight. The sign read, Millie's Truck Stop, best breakfast in Nebraska, open 24 hours. But when I pulled in at 12:07 a.m., every window glowed with golden sunlight instead of fluorescent tubes. Thomas Martinez, 33 years old, driving for J.B. Hunt. 4 years on the road, westbound on I-80 near Ogallala with a load of electronics bound for Reno. May 22, 2023. My stomach was growling. I'd skipped dinner, and Millie's had always been a reliable stop. Good coffee, decent eggs, waitress who actually smiled. I'd stopped here maybe 6 times before during daylight runs, but I'd never stopped, here at midnight. I parked in the lot, which was full despite the late hour. At least 20 trucks, all different companies, all with their lights off like the drivers were inside eating. The building itself looked wrong in a way I couldn't immediately identify. The architecture was correct. Single-story diner, attached convenience store, diesel pumps out front. But the light pouring from the windows was too warm, too natural. Sunlight. I walked to the entrance. Through the glass door, I could see the interior clearly. The diner was packed. Every booth, every counter seat taken. Drivers eating breakfast, scrambled eggs, bacon, pancakes, hash browns. Coffee in white ceramic mugs. A waitress moving between tables. Everything normal. Except it was 12:07 a.m., and the light inside was bright afternoon sunshine. I pushed open the door. A bell chimed. The waitress looked up and smiled. Sit anywhere, hun. Menu's on the table. I took a seat at the counter. The driver next to me, heavy guy, Schneider uniform, maybe 50, was working through a plate of biscuits and gravy. He didn't acknowledge me, focused entirely on his food. The waitress came over. She was exactly as I remembered from my daytime stops. Mid-40s, dyed red hair, name tag reading Donna. Coffee? Yeah, black. I looked around. Every driver was eating breakfast food. Every plate showed eggs, pancakes, breakfast meat. Nobody had burgers or sandwiches or any food you'd expect at midnight. Is it breakfast time? Donna poured my coffee. It's always breakfast time at Millie's, hun. What can I get you? I thought you served lunch and dinner too? Not at breakfast time. She smiled. It was a pleasant smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. Breakfast only. That's the rule. The Schneider driver next to me finished his biscuits and pushed the plate away. He pulled out his wallet, dropped a 20 on the counter, and stood up. As he walked toward the door, I noticed something. His shadow was wrong. The sunlight pouring through the windows cast everyone's shadows toward the back of the diner. His shadow pointed forward toward the door, like the light was coming from behind him instead of the windows. I looked at my own shadow. It pointed the correct direction. Then I looked at all the other drivers. Half had correct shadows, half had backward shadows. 2 eggs, scrambled bacon, wheat toast, I told Donna, my mouth going dry. She wrote it down and walked away. I sipped the coffee. It tasted normal. The temperature of the diner felt normal. Only the light was wrong, and the shadows, and the fundamental impossibility of what time it was. I pulled out my phone. 12:09 a.m. The date was correct. But when I tried to take a photo of the diner, the camera app froze. The phone displayed the image for a moment. The diner, the drivers, the impossible sunlight, then crashed completely. When it restarted, all my photos from the last week were gone. The driver on my other side finished his pancakes and stood up. He had a backward shadow too. He walked to the door, pushed it open, and stepped outside. Through the window, I watched him walk to his truck. But the parking lot outside was dark, normal midnight darkness. The moment he crossed the threshold, he was silhouetted against nighttime. He climbed into his cab and just sat there. Didn't start the engine, didn't move. I realized none of the trucks in the lot were leaving. I'd been watching for 5 minutes and not one had started up or pulled away. Donna returned with my food. The eggs steamed, the bacon was crispy. The toast was perfectly browned. It looked delicious. My stomach growled again. Anything else, hun? Yeah, actually, what time is it? She glanced at the clock on the wall behind the counter. It showed 7:47 a.m. 7:45, morning rush should be slowing down soon. But it's after midnight. Is it? She frowned, not upset, just confused. That doesn't sound right. It's morning. It's always morning at breakfast time. I looked at the other drivers. The ones with correct shadows were eating normally, talking quietly, acting natural. The ones with backward shadows ate mechanically, rhythmically, like they were going through motions rather than enjoying food. One driver with a backward shadow had been cutting the same pancake for the last minute, his knife sawing through it over and over without actually separating the pieces. Donna, how long have you worked here? Oh, years and years. I lose track, she smiled. Since the morning shift. Which morning? This morning, the only morning. You want more coffee? I looked at my plate. I was hungry. The food smelled amazing. But something screamed at me not to eat it. Actually, I need to use the restroom first. Back corner, past the kitchen. I stood up and walked toward the restrooms, but I passed them and pushed through the kitchen doors instead. 2 cooks were working the griddles, flipping eggs and bacon. The kitchen was spotless, industrial, normal. Except for the door at the back wall. It was a regular exit door, but instead of a push bar or a handle, it had a clock face. A functional clock showing 7:49 a.m. As I watched, the hands ticked forward. 7:50, 7:51. I tried to turn the clock like a dial. It wouldn't budge. I tried pulling the door. Locked. I noticed words engraved in the metal below the clock. Exit available at sundown. One of the cooks noticed me. Help you? Just looking for the bathroom. Other direction. He pointed back toward the dining room. I returned to my seat. My food was gone. The plate was empty, scraped clean like I'd eaten every bite. I hadn't touched it. Donna was wiping down the counter. How was everything? I didn't eat that. Sure you did, hun. Cleaned your plate. You want dessert? The driver next to me, a different driver, not the Schneider guy, finished his breakfast and stood up. Backward shadow. He walked to the door. Through the window, I watched him get in his truck and sit motionless. I counted the drivers in the diner. 23. I counted the trucks in the lot. 27. 4 trucks with no drivers inside the diner. I looked at those 4 trucks more carefully. Their cabs were occupied. Drivers sitting behind the wheels, not moving, just sitting in the dark. Donna, what happens to people who don't finish breakfast? She thought about it. I don't rightly know. Everyone finishes breakfast eventually. What if someone wants to leave before eating? Why would anyone do that? It's breakfast time. I stood up and walked to the door. My hand reached for the handle. Through the glass, I could see my truck sitting in normal midnight darkness. Safety was right there, 20 feet away. I pushed the door open. The parking lot was empty, not dark, empty, no trucks, no pavement, no diesel pumps. Just an empty field of dirt and dead grass extending in every direction. In the distance, maybe half a mile away, I could see I-80 cars passing with their headlights, completely normal traffic. I turned around. The diner was behind me, glowing with its impossible sunlight. Through the windows, I could see all the trucks, all the drivers, Donna pouring coffee. I stepped back inside. The bell chimed. Everything was exactly as it had been. The parking lot visible through the windows showed all the trucks again. Forget something? Donna asked. I sat back down at the counter. My plate was full again. Fresh eggs, fresh bacon, fresh toast, steaming hot. What is this place? Millie's Truck Stop, best breakfast in Nebraska. She refilled my coffee. You should eat, hun. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. A new driver entered. He looked exhausted, stumbling slightly, clearly in need of food and rest. He sat 3 seats down from me. Donna brought him a menu. Coffee? Yeah, thanks. Black. He looked around, then checked his watch. This place is open at midnight? It's not midnight, Donna said cheerfully. It's breakfast time. The new driver didn't argue. He ordered eggs and sausage. I wanted to warn him. Wanted to tell him not to eat. But warn him about what? I didn't understand what was happening. I just knew it was wrong. I tried the door again. This time I ran. Burst through it and sprinted toward where my truck should be. 5 steps into the parking lot, the pavement vanished beneath my feet. I fell into dirt, landed hard, scrambled up and kept running. The diner's light illuminated maybe 20 feet of dirt in every direction. Beyond that, darkness. I ran into the darkness. I don't know how long I ran, minutes, hours. The dirt was endless. The diner's light never got farther away. It stayed always, 20 feet behind me, illuminating my path. I finally stopped, gasping, turned around. The diner was right there, 20 feet away, like I'd never left it. I walked back inside. The bell chimed. Ready for breakfast now? Donna asked. I sat down. The same plate, the same food. I picked up my fork, put it down. I need to understand what's happening. The driver next to me, an old guy, CR England cap, weathered face, spoke without looking at me. You're stuck in breakfast. Happens to some drivers. The truck stop catches you. You can talk? Sure. I've been here long enough to figure things out. You're new. You still have a forward shadow. That means you're not completely caught yet. What do you mean, completely caught? He gestured at a driver 3 seats down. See him? Backward shadow. He's been here for years. He doesn't know it, but he has. He thinks it's still the first morning he stopped. He'll eat breakfast, pay, walk to his truck, and sit there until he gets hungry again. Then he'll come back inside and eat another breakfast, over and over, forever. That's insane. That's time dilation. This place exists in a loop, an eternal breakfast. Some truck stops are like this, accidents of temporal geometry, places where time doesn't flow right. Most people never notice because they stop during actual morning hours when the loop coincides with real time. But if you stop at the wrong time... He finally looked at me. His eyes were old, tired. You get caught? How do I get out? Finish breakfast, all of it. Don't leave a scrap. The loop feeds on hunger. If you're hungry, you're stuck. If you're satisfied, truly satisfied, you can leave. But... He gestured at his own plate. It was full of eggs and bacon. I can never quite finish. Always one more bite. Always still a little hungry. I looked at my plate. The eggs were perfect. The bacon was crispy. My stomach was empty. I was hungry. So hungry. I'd been hungry when I arrived. I picked up my fork and took a bite of eggs. They were delicious. I took another bite and another. The food seemed to multiply on the plate. Every bite I took, more appeared. Not obviously, just gradually, the portion remaining constant despite how much I ate. Don't you see? The old driver said. You can't finish. The breakfast is infinite. You'll eat forever and stay hungry. I dropped the fork. Then I'll stay hungry. I won't eat. You'll get hungrier. So hungry you can't think. So hungry you'd eat anything. And eventually you'll eat. And once you start, you won't be able to stop. I stood up, walked to the window, pressed my hand against the glass. The sunlight was warm. Outside, I could see the trucks clearly. I could see my freight liner sitting in its space. The trailer still attached, the cargo still inside. My whole life sitting in that truck. The clock on. The wall showed 8:15 a.m. I'd been here for 8 minutes by my phone, but several hours by the diner's time. Donna approached. You haven't finished your breakfast, hun. I'm not hungry. Everyone's hungry at breakfast time. She smiled. Behind the smile, something else. Not malevolence, not kindness, just function. Like she was part of a mechanism playing her role. The new driver who'd arrived after me finished his breakfast. He had a backwards shadow now. He stood up, walked outside, sat in his truck, unmoving. How many drivers are trapped here? I asked the old driver. In this diner? 50, 60, maybe more. Some have been here so long they're not drivers anymore, they're just part of the loop. They exist only in breakfast time. He took a bite of his eggs. I've been here 11 years, in real time, I mean. 11 years of eternal mourning. My family thinks I'm dead. My company replaced me. My truck was impounded, scrapped. I don't exist anymore except here. 11 years. The horror of it hit me like a physical weight. 11 years of eating breakfast, walking to his truck, sitting, getting hungry, eating again. An eternal loop. There has to be a way out. The exit door in the kitchen, it opens at sundown, but it's always morning here. Sundown never comes. I remembered the clock dial door. What if we could change the time? You can't. Believe me, I've tried. The clock can't be moved. The hands turn on their own. An idea formed. Crazy, impossible, but everything here was impossible. What if we made it sundown? What if we blocked out the sun? The old driver laughed bitterly. Block out the sun? With what? I looked around. The windows. There were 8 large windows lining the diner walls, all pouring in that eternal morning sunlight. Help me move tables. We're covering the windows. He stared at me. That won't work. Do you have a better idea? He didn't. Neither did I, really, but I couldn't just sit and eat infinite breakfast. I grabbed a table, started dragging it toward the nearest window. The old driver hesitated, then helped. We lifted it, tipped it on its side, and propped it against the window. The sunlight poured through the gaps around the edges. The diner remained bright. We need more, I said. We took another table, then another. Stacking them, layering them over the window. Donna watched us, but didn't interfere. The other drivers ignored us, focused on their meals. After we'd covered 3 windows, the diner was noticeably dimmer. The light was still there, but weaker. The clock on the wall read 8:45 a.m., then 8:46. It's working, I breathed. The time is moving forward faster. We worked frantically, covering every window. The drivers with backward shadows didn't react. They just kept eating, mechanical and oblivious. But the drivers with forward shadows started noticing. One stood up and helped us, then another. Soon 6 of us were working together, pulling down curtains, stacking tables and chairs, blocking every source of that impossible sunlight. The diner grew darker. The clock hands accelerated. 9 Saudi a.m., 10 Ugyo a.m., 11 Ugyo a.m. Donna stood behind the counter, still smiling. You can't leave breakfast time, Hans. Noon, 1 p.m., 2 p.m. The sunlight was almost gone, just thin beams around the edges of our makeshift barriers. The diner was nearly dark. Some of the drivers with backward shadows began to flicker, their forms becoming translucent, unstable. We're erasing them, the old driver yelled. They only exist in morning time. If we reach night, they'll disappear. 3 sounds p.m., 4 sound p.m., 5 p.m. The backward shadow drivers were vanishing one by one, fading like old photographs. Donna was flickering too, her smile frozen, her form becoming less solid. 6 p.m., 7 p.m. The last beam of sunlight disappeared. The diner plunged into darkness. The only light came from emergency exits and the glow of the clock, which showed 7:47 p.m., sundown. I ran to the kitchen, pushed through the doors. The exit was there, the clock face showing 7:47 p.m. I grabbed the handle beneath it and pulled. The door opened. Cold night air rushed in. Real air. Real darkness. I could see stars. I ran outside and found myself in the parking lot. The real parking lot with real trucks, real pavement. My Freightliner was there. I could see I-80 in the distance, headlights passing. The other drivers burst out behind me, 5 of us, including the old CR England driver. We stood in the parking lot, breathing hard, looking back at the diner. It was dark inside, abandoned. Through the windows, I could see empty tables, dusty counters, no lights. A chain-link fence surrounded the property with a condemned sign wired to it. It's been closed for 7 years. A voice said. I turned. A state trooper was walking toward us from his patrol car parked on the shoulder of I-80. Millie shut down in 2016. Health violations. You folks okay? We were inside, I said. The trooper frowned. Inside? Place is locked up tight, has been for years. I looked at my phone. May 22nd, 2023, 12:34 a.m. 27 minutes since I'd pulled into the parking lot. The CR England driver was crying. 11 years, he whispered. 11 years, and it was 27 minutes. The trooper radioed for an ambulance. Said we looked like we were in shock, maybe dehydrated. He asked where our trucks were. I pointed to my Freightliner. He walked over with his flashlight, checked the cab. Sir, your logbook shows you pulled in here at 12:07 and left at 12:34. That's accurate to the minute. I know. But you're telling me you were inside Millie's, a building that's been condemned for 7 years. For hours, days? I didn't answer. Neither did the other drivers. What could we say? The ambulance took us to Ogallala. The paramedics found us dehydrated, malnourished, like we hadn't eaten in days. They found us disoriented, talking about sunlight at midnight and infinite breakfast. They found us traumatized, but physically unharmed. The old CR England driver called his family. They thought he'd died 11 years ago. His funeral had been in 2012. His wife had remarried. His kids had grown up without him. But according to every objective record, his logbook, his ELD data, his phone location history, he'd only been in that parking lot for 27 minutes on May 22nd, 2023. All of us 27 minutes. But we'd lived days, weeks, years in there, trapped in breakfast time, trapped in an infinite loop that didn't exist anymore but somehow still caught us. I finished my haul to Reno, delivered my electronics, picked up a return load. I still drive I-80, still pass Ogallala regularly. Millie's truck stop is there, still abandoned, still condemned. Sometimes I see other trucks parked in its lot. I honk, I flash my lights. Sometimes they leave. Sometimes they don't. I never stop at truck stops at midnight anymore. Only during daylight. Only when I can see the sun in the sky and know it's really sun, not some temporal illusion. But I'm still hungry. All the time, starving. I eat meal after meal and I'm never satisfied. The doctor says I'm healthy, no medical reason for the constant hunger. But I know the truth. I never finished breakfast. I left food on my plate. And somewhere in breakfast time, in a diner that doesn't exist anymore, my plate is still sitting there. Still full, still waiting. And I'll always be hungry until I go back and finish it. But I can't go back, won't go back. I'll starve first. I'll waste away to nothing before I return to that eternal morning. Sometimes I dream I'm there, sitting at the counter, Donna pouring coffee, the sunlight warm and golden, my plate full of eggs and bacon. And in the dream I'm so hungry, so desperately hungry that I eat. I eat everything, and more appears. And I eat that too. And I eat forever. I wake up gasping, my stomach growling, checking my shadow to make sure it points the right direction. Still forward, still normal, still free. But I'm so hungry, so very, very hungry. And Millie's is waiting. The door will open for me. Breakfast will be served. It's always breakfast time somewhere in the loop. Always morning. Always waiting. All I have to do is stop. Just pull into that parking lot at the wrong time. At any time. Because time doesn't matter there. Morning is eternal. Breakfast never ends. I drive past. I always drive past. Hands at 10 and 2, eyes forward, ignoring the hunger. But someday I might be too hungry, too weak, too tired of fighting it. And I'll stop. I'll pull in. I'll sit at that counter. And Donna will smile and ask, "Coffee, hun?" And I'll say yes. And I'll never leave again. Story 7. The Road That Digests. My trailer walls were pulsing with a rhythm that matched my heartbeat, and the pavement beneath my wheels had become soft and fibrous like muscle tissue. David Sullivan, 48 years old, running independent loads for the past 12 years, currently hauling frozen vegetables from California to Chicago via I-40 through Arizona. June 9, 2023, 4:38 a.m. I'd been driving through the desert for 6 hours, and somewhere around mile marker 213, the highway had become organic. It started with the texture. The road beneath my tires went from standard asphalt to something that had give to it, springy, resilient. I felt it through the steering wheel first. A subtle change in feedback, like driving on something that absorbed shock differently than pavement should. Then I noticed the way my headlights reflected off the surface. Instead of the dull gray of asphalt, the road was reflecting light with a slight sheen. Moist. The road surface was moist. I slowed down, leaning forward to look through the windshield. The lane markers weren't painted on anymore. They were part of the road surface, raised slightly, pale lines that looked like veins under skin. And they were moving. Barely perceptible, but moving, pulsing. Blood pumping through veins. The road was alive. I should have stopped. Should have pulled over immediately, but something kept my foot on the accelerator. Not fear. Curiosity maybe, or something deeper. A compulsion. Like the road wanted me to keep driving and my body was obeying before my mind could object. The pavement began to change color. No longer dark gray, now it was pink, flesh pink. The texture became more obvious, more wrong. I could see ridges and valleys in the surface that looked like muscle striations. My tires made wet sounds rolling over it, a squelching noise that turned my stomach. My trailer rattled. Not the normal vibration of wheels on pavement, a different movement. The trailer was shaking from inside. I checked my mirrors. The refrigerated unit was running normally. exhaust visible in the pre-dawn darkness. But the trailer walls themselves were moving, expanding and contracting rhythmically. Breathing. I grabbed my CB radio. Anyone on I-40 eastbound near mile marker 215, you getting this? Road conditions are... Something's wrong with the road. Static. I tried again. Any driver on I-40, do you copy? A voice came through, distorted and wet-sounding. Keep driving. The road needs you to keep driving. Who is this? The road. The road is speaking. The road has always been speaking. You're finally listening. I dropped the radio. My hands were shaking. The road ahead was undulating now, rippling like something was moving underneath it. Not violently, gently the way a throat contracts when swallowing. And I was being swallowed. My truck was moving down the road like food down an esophagus. The mile markers confirmed it. 216, 217, 218, ticking past steadily even though I'd taken my foot off the accelerator. The road was pulling me forward, peristalsis. The highway was digesting me. I tried to brake. The pedal went to the floor with no resistance. I tried to turn the wheel. It wouldn't respond. My truck was no longer under my control. It was being pushed, pulled, squeezed forward by the contractions of the living road. My trailer walls weren't just pulsing anymore. They were bleeding. I watched in my mirrors as red liquid began seeping through the seams, dripping onto the road surface where it was immediately absorbed like water into soil. The road was dissolving my trailer, breaking it down, digesting it. I yanked on the door handle. It wouldn't open. The door had sealed itself, the metal around the frame flowing like wax welding shut. The windows wouldn't roll down. I was trapped inside my cab, trapped on a living highway that was consuming my truck piece by piece. The CB crackled again. Don't fight. Digestion is painless if you don't resist. The road needs nutrients. The road needs steel and aluminum and plastic and fuel. The road needs drivers. You'll become part of the road. You'll be the asphalt, the lane markers, the mile markers. You'll feel every tire that drives over you forever. Get me off this road, I screamed. There is no off. All roads lead here eventually. All roads are connected. All roads are parts of the same organism. You've been driving on living tissue your whole life. You just didn't notice until now. I looked at my fuel gauge. It was dropping rapidly. Not because the engine was using fuel, because something was drinking it. The tank was being drained from outside. I could hear slurping sounds underneath the cab. The road was feeding. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Thank you for your service. Your truck contains 687 pounds of steel, 312 pounds of aluminum, 89 pounds of plastic, and 147 gallons of diesel. Total caloric value, 847,000 kilocalories. Digestion time, 47 minutes. Please remain calm. 47 minutes until I was completely consumed. The dashboard lights began to flicker and die. The road was draining my battery now, sucking electricity like a lamprey. My headlights dimmed, then went out completely. The only light came from the slow dawn creeping over the desert horizon, and from below, a faint bioluminescence from the road itself. A sickly green glow like deep-sea creatures emit. In that glow, I could see the truth of the road. It extended in both directions infinitely. A massive living thing that stretched across the continent. What I'd thought was Arizona desert was actually just empty space between the road's organs. The highway was the organism, the rest was void. My trailer was half dissolved now. I could see through it in my mirrors, see the frozen vegetables spilling out and being absorbed by the road surface. Thousands of pounds of broccoli and carrots and peas disappearing into living asphalt like bodies into acid. The trailer's aluminum walls were being broken down, molecule by molecule converted into whatever substance the road needed. And I was next. The cab floor was softening. I felt my boots sinking slightly into what had been solid metal. It was becoming spongy, warm, body temperature. The road was beginning to digest me from below, enzymes seeping up through compromised metal. I climbed up onto my seat, pulling my feet away from the floor, but the seat was softening too. Everything was softening. The entire truck was being liquefied. The CB voice spoke again, clearer now. You taste of anxiety and diesel smoke. You taste of 10,000 miles and 20 years of driving. You taste of routes not taken and destinations never reached. The road remembers everywhere you've been. Now you'll remember everywhere the road goes. I don't want this. Want is irrelevant. The road hungers. The road is always hungry, 40,000 vehicles daily, and still it hungers. You are one meal of billions, David Sullivan. You are necessary. You are fuel. My truck lurched forward, sinking deeper into the road surface. What had been pavement was now clearly a sphincter, a ring of muscle contracting around my vehicle, pulling it down. I was sinking into the road like quicksand, but controlled, purposeful. Being swallowed, the cab was tilting forward at a 45-degree angle. I braced myself against the dashboard. Through the windshield, I could see into the road. Not through it, into it. The road had opened, and I was descending into a cavity lined with glistening tissue. A stomach. The road had a stomach. Other vehicles were down here, dozens of them in various states of dissolution. I saw the rusted remains of a 1970s-era semi, just a skeleton of its frame left. A modern Amazon delivery van that was mostly dissolved, just the tires remaining. A passenger car so far gone it was just a pile of metal fragments in a pool of enzymatic fluid. And drivers. God, the drivers. Some were still in their vehicles, their bodies partially dissolved, faces screaming silently in whatever moment of death they'd been frozen in. Some were just bones. Some were still moving, writhing slowly in the digestive juices, not quite dead, not quite alive. My truck came to rest at the bottom of the stomach cavity. The enzymatic fluid began rising immediately, seeping up through cracks in the cab floor. It was warm, viscous, and it burned. Not fire burned, acid burned. Chemical breakdown. My boots started smoking. I climbed onto the dashboard, then onto the roof through the sleeper cab. I pushed up on the ceiling. It was already softening, but I managed to force my way through, emerging on top of my cab in a cavern of living tissue. The walls contracted rhythmically. The air was hot, humid, smelled like petroleum and decay. The CB radio, somehow still functioning in my partially dissolved cab, echoed through the cavity. 31 minutes remaining. Please remain calm. Struggling only releases stress hormones that embitter the nutritional value. I looked up. The opening I'd come through, the sphincter in the road, was closing. The circle of dawn sky was narrowing. Soon I'd be sealed in darkness with the other consumed vehicles and drivers. I had to get out before the opening closed. I jumped from my cab to the pile of older vehicles. The metal was slippery with enzymes, but I scrambled up, using the Amazon van as a stepping stone, then an old pickup truck climbing toward the opening. My hands burned where they touched the digestive fluid coating everything. The sphincter was 3/4 closed now, just a narrow gap remaining. I leaped for it, fingers catching the edge. The muscle tissue tried to contract around my hands, cutting off my grip. I pulled with every ounce of strength, hauling myself up even as the opening squeezed tighter. My legs kicked in empty air, then found purchase on the slick stomach wall. I pushed, pulled, wormed my way through a gap that was now barely 6 inches wide. The sphincter contracted around my chest, crushing, trying to pull me back down. With a final desperate heave, I forced myself through. The sphincter snapped shut behind me, missing my legs by inches. I rolled away across the surface of the road and lay there gasping. The road surface beneath me was solid, normal asphalt, cool pre-dawn air. The sky was lightening, stars fading. I was back on the surface. I stood up on shaking legs. My truck was gone. The road where I'd been driving showed no signs of disturbance. Just normal I-40 stretching east and west, empty in the early morning. But I could feel it beneath my feet. The pulse, the slow, steady heartbeat of the living road. It was still there, still alive, still hungry. I started walking, east toward Chicago, my original destination. Couldn't call for help. My phone had been in the truck. Couldn't flag down another vehicle. None were coming. Just empty highway in both directions. After 2 hours of walking, I saw something ahead. A truck stop. Relief flooded through me. I ran toward it. The building was abandoned. Parking lot cracked and weed grown. Pumps removed. Windows broken. A faded sign read Pete's Truck Stop closed 1997. But fresh tire tracks led to it. And inside, through the dirty windows, I could see them. Trucks. Dozens of trucks parked in neat rows, visible through the walls like the building was transparent. Drivers sitting in their cabs, waiting. I walked closer. The building wasn't really abandoned, it was camouflaged. The decay was just a surface appearance. Underneath it was active, alive, another organ of the road system. A holding pen. A place where the road kept its food until it was ready to digest them. The drivers in those trucks were waiting their turn. They'd pulled off I-40 thinking they were stopping for fuel or food. Instead, they'd been captured. They'd been idling in that lot for hours, days, years, waiting for the road to get hungry enough to consume them. And then I realized I'd stopped at this exact truck stop 12 years ago. 2011, it had been open then, functioning. I remembered the layout, remembered the food options. This was Pete's. I'd eaten lunch here. The road remembered. The road knew I'd stopped here before, and now it had brought me back. The building's door opened by itself. Invitation. I could go inside, sit in one of those trucks, wait my turn, or I could keep walking, keep running, delay the inevitable, because that's what the CB voice had said. All roads lead here eventually. All roads are connected. Sooner or later, every driver gets digested. Every vehicle becomes nutrients. The road network is a continent-scale organism, and we're all just food. I kept walking, past Pete's without entering. Walked another mile, 2 miles, 3. At mile marker 227, the pavement beneath my feet began to soften again. I kept walking, faster. The road was getting spongier, my boots sinking slightly with each step. I ran. The road tried to grip my feet, tried to hold me in place. I pulled free and sprinted. Behind me, I heard the sound of the road opening, a wet, tearing sound as another stomach cavity formed, trying to swallow me. A car appeared in the distance. First vehicle I'd seen since my truck was consumed. I waved my arms frantically. It slowed, pulled over. An elderly couple, concerned faces. "Are you all right? Do you need help?" I looked behind me. The road looked normal. Solid asphalt. No sign of the living tissue, the opening cavity. Yes, I need a ride. My truck broke down. They let me in. We drove east. The road beneath their tires was firm, normal. The pavement was just pavement. Mile markers ticked past. Nothing unusual, but I could feel it. The pulse, the heartbeat of the living road, transmitted through the tires, through the frame, through the seat beneath me. The road was letting me go for now, letting me escape. Because it knew what I knew. I'd have to come back eventually. I'd have to drive again, and next time I might not escape. The elderly couple dropped me at a truck stop in Flagstaff. A real one, open, functional. I called my insurance company, reported the truck stolen, easier than trying to explain the truth. Filed a police report with the same lie. Started the process of dealing with the loss. But I didn't stop driving. Couldn't stop. Driving is what I do, it's who I am. Within a month I had a new truck, a new load, a new route. Back on the highway, back on the living tissue that pretends to be pavement. I drive carefully now. I pay attention to the texture beneath my tires. The moment I feel anything wrong, any give in the pavement, any moisture, any pulse, I exit immediately. I've abandoned 3 loads mid-route when the road felt too alive. Other drivers think I'm paranoid. My safety record has flags now. Driver reports imaginary road conditions. They want me to see a psychiatrist, get evaluated for fitness to drive. But I know the truth. The road is alive. The road is always hungry. And somewhere beneath I-40 in Arizona, my truck is still being digested. My bones will be digested next time I drive through there. The road is patient. The road can wait decades for its food to return. I've started researching, found records of trucks that disappeared on I-40, 27 over the last 30 years, all in the same stretch between mile markers 210 and 230. Reported as abandoned, stolen, or unexplained vanishings. But I know what really happened. They were consumed. I found a geological survey from 1973 before I-40 was built through that area. The surveyors noted unusual organic compounds in the soil samples and anomalous electromagnetic readings suggesting biological activity. Their recommendation was to route the highway somewhere else. They built it there anyway. Built it right on top of the living thing underneath. Or maybe the building process created it. Maybe the combination of asphalt and petroleum and metal and constant friction from vehicles somehow generated life. Maybe the road woke up. It doesn't matter how it happened. It only matters that it's there, it's real, it's hungry. And I have a load going to Phoenix next week. Have to take I-40 through Arizona, through mile markers 210 to 230, through the digestive tract. I could refuse the load. I could quit driving entirely. I could stay off that highway forever, but I won't. Can't. Because that's not how it works. The road calls to its food. And I'm food. I was always food. From the moment I got my CDL, from the first mile I drove, I was enrolled in the menu. I just didn't know it yet. The road is patient. The road is hungry. The road remembers. And eventually I'll go back. I'll drive through those mile markers again, and this time when the pavement softens, when the sphincter opens, when the stomach cavity beckons, I don't think I'll escape twice. See you on the road. Watch the pavement. Feel for the pulse. And if you're driving through Arizona on I-40 between mile markers 210 and 230, and you see a Freightliner with Arizona plates going too slow, hanging back like it's afraid to proceed, that'll be me. Gathering courage, saying goodbye, preparing to be digested. The road is alive, the road is hungry, and we're all on the menu, every last one of us. Story 8. The dispatcher who knows when you'll die. The text message from dispatch arrived at exactly 11:43 p.m. Robert Chen. Load complete. Final destination confirmed. ETA 3 hours, 17 minutes. But I'd just started my route. I was hauling furniture from Atlanta to Nashville. 6-hour drive, nowhere near complete. And the dispatcher's number wasn't one I recognized. Robert Chen. That's me, 26 years old, newest driver for Covenant Transport, 8 months on the road trying to make this career work. July 16, 2023, northbound on I-75 just past Chattanooga. A routine night run that was about to become anything but routine. I called the number back. It rang 4 times, then a voice answered, "Dispatch, Covenant Transport Eternal Routing Division." "Yeah, hi, I think you sent me a message by mistake. I haven't completed my delivery. I'm still 3 hours out from Nashville." "No mistake, Robert. Your final delivery is in 3 hours and 17 minutes. Well, 16 minutes now. Time is passing." "Final delivery?" "I'm delivering to a furniture warehouse in Nashville, then deadheading back to Atlanta tomorrow." "That's what your paperwork says, but that's not your final destination. Your final destination is mile marker 147 on I-24, 16 miles east of Nashville." You'll arrive in 3 hours and 15 minutes. That's when your delivery is complete. What are you talking about? I don't have anything going to mile marker 147. You're delivering yourself, Robert. That's where you die. Car accident, T-boned by a drunk driver in a Dodge Ram who runs a red light at the exit 147 off-ramp. Impact speed 47 miles per hour. Your cab crushes inward. You die on impact. 3 hours and 14 minutes from now. I nearly dropped the phone. What the fuck? Who is this? I told you. Eternal Routing Division. We handle the final deliveries. Every driver's last route. We don't dispatch the regular loads. We dispatch the last one. And yours is tonight, Robert. Mile marker 147, 3 hours and 13 minutes. This is a sick prank. I'm reporting this number to... You can't report us. We're not in any system. We exist alongside your normal dispatch, but separate. We only call once, the night of your final delivery, to tell you where and when you'll die. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. I'm not going to mile marker 147. I'm taking a different route. You'll go there. You always go there. We've never been wrong. Every driver we call arrives at their final destination exactly when we say. You can try to avoid it. Drivers always try. But something will redirect you. Road closure, GPS malfunction, wrong turn. The route corrects itself. You'll arrive at mile marker 147 at 2:59 a.m. The Ram hits you at 3 a.m. I hung up, pulled over on the shoulder, hands shaking too badly to drive safely. This was insane. This was someone's sick joke. Had to be. Another text arrived. Don't waste time, stopped. The accident happens in 3 hours and 11 minutes regardless of your current position. If you keep driving toward Nashville, you'll die at mile marker 147. If you stop, you'll die somewhere else, but at the same time. The when is fixed. The where adjusts. I called 911. Told them someone was threatening me, giving me detailed death threats. The operator took my information, said they'd send a patrol car to my location. While I waited, I Googled Eternal Routing Division Covenant Transport. Nothing, no results. I searched accident statistics for mile marker 147 on I-24. Found something, 17 fatal accidents at that location in the last 8 years, all truck drivers. All between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., all listed as collisions with drunk drivers. 17 drivers, 17 deaths. All at the same location, same circumstances. The patrol car arrived. Young officer looked maybe 23. He took my statement, examined the text messages on my phone. This is definitely concerning. Do you have any idea who might want to threaten you? No. I'm new to this job. I don't have enemies. I just want to know if I'm in real danger. He called it in, ran the phone number through his system. Number's not registered to anyone. It's showing as out of service, like it doesn't exist. But I just called it. Someone answered. I'm not saying you're lying. I'm saying according to our systems, that number isn't active. He paused. Look, you seem genuinely scared. Here's what I recommend. Don't drive to Nashville tonight. Find a hotel, get some rest, call your dispatcher in the morning and explain the situation. Better safe than sorry. It was good advice. I should have taken it. But I had a delivery deadline. Missing it would go on my record, might cost me my job. And part of me, the rational part, still believed this was just an elaborate prank. I thanked the officer and got back on the road. Decided to take an alternate route, avoid I-24 entirely. I'd take I-65 north, then I-40 west into Nashville. Different route, different mile markers. If this Eternal Routing Division knew my future, avoiding their predicted location should prevent it. At 1:15 a.m., an hour into my revised route, my GPS malfunctioned. The screen went black, then rebooted, showing a new route, directly to I-24 to mile marker 147. I tried to reset it. The route wouldn't change. I turned off the GPS and navigated manually, kept driving north on I-65. At 1:47 a.m., road signs appeared. I-65 North closed ahead. Accident investigation. All traffic diverted to I-24 East. The detour signs led directly to I-24, directly toward mile marker 147. My phone rang. The dispatch number. I answered, hands numb. "You can't avoid it, Robert. Stop trying." "Why are you doing this? If you know I'm going to die, why not help me avoid it?" "We're not doing anything. We're just informing you. The death is already fixed in time. We exist at the end of routes where all roads terminate. We see the final destination of every driver. We don't cause the deaths. We just witness them. And we extend the courtesy of letting drivers know. Some appreciate the warning. Some don't. How can my death already be fixed? The future isn't predetermined. Isn't it? You've been driving toward mile marker 147 your whole life, Robert. Every choice, every route, every decision has been leading you there. Tonight is when all your roads converge on that single point. That's how destiny works. Not fate imposed from outside, just the natural convergence of probability and choice. I can change it. I can stop driving right now. You can, but you won't. Because you need this job. Because missing this delivery ruins your record. Because part of you still doesn't believe us. So you'll keep driving. You'll take the detour to I-24. You'll pass mile marker 145, then 146, then 147. And at precisely 3 a.m., a Dodge Ram will run the red light at exit 147. The driver is drunk. He's been drinking since 9 p.m. He's currently on mile marker 134, also heading toward you. You're both on a collision course, literally. Give me the Ram's license plate. Give me something I can use to warn the police. We only dispatch drivers. The Ram driver isn't one of ours. His final destination is the same place as yours. Mile marker 147, 3 a.m. But he's not a truck driver, so we don't handle his route. We only call truckers. Professional courtesy. I was on I-24 now, following the detour. Mile marker 134 passed. Then 135. I was heading directly toward the location I was trying to avoid. How many drivers have you called? Tonight, 12. You're the 11th. One more after you. It's a busy night for final deliveries. 12 drivers dying tonight? Dying in the next 6 hours. You're at 3 hours and... Paused. 42 minutes. Not the soonest, not the latest. Right in the middle of tonight's schedule. This can't be real. This can't be how death works. It's how trucker death works. The road has its own system, its own dispatch. You transport cargo until you become cargo. You deliver loads until you're delivered. Tonight at mile marker 147, you're being delivered to death. That's the job, Robert. That's always been the job. Mile marker 140. My exit for Nashville was coming up at marker 145. I could exit there, take surface streets, avoid marker 147 entirely. I'm exiting before 147. You won't. Your delivery is at a warehouse on the east side of Nashville. The exit for that warehouse is exit 147. You need to take that exit to complete your delivery, and you will complete your delivery. You always complete your deliveries. That's who you are. He was right. I'd never missed a delivery. It was a point of pride. But pride didn't matter if I was dead. I'd exit at 145, take the long way around. Mile marker 145 appeared. The exit ramp was closed. Construction barrels, exit closed signs. I couldn't take it. 2 hours and 38 minutes, Robert. I kept driving. Mile marker 146, then 147. The exit was right there, open, accessible. The warehouse I needed was off this exit. If I passed it, I'd have to backtrack 5 miles to the next exit, adding time to my delivery. I passed exit 147, kept driving. The dispatcher's prediction was wrong. I'd driven past the fatal location. I was safe. My trailer tire blew. The truck lurched right toward the shoulder. I fought the wheel, brought the vehicle under control, and coasted to a stop on the shoulder. At mile marker 147. Mechanical failure. the dispatcher's voice said through my phone, which I'd left on speaker. Common redirection method. The route corrects itself. You're exactly where you need to be. I looked at the clock, 2:41 a.m., 19 minutes until the predicted accident. If the dispatcher was telling the truth, I had 19 minutes to live. I got out to examine the blown tire. It was shredded, completely unusable. I'd need to call for roadside assistance. That would take at least an hour, maybe two. I'd still be here at 3 a.m. right when a semi pulled up behind me. Another Covenant truck. The driver climbed down, a woman in her 40s. Need help? Blew a tire. I've got a spare, but I could use a hand changing it. She nodded. Let's get it done quick. This is a bad spot. Bad how? Mile marker 147? This spot has killed more drivers than anywhere else on this route. Drunk drivers love to exit here. Something about the curve, the lighting, people coming off I-24 drunk, they drift, hit trucks stopped on the shoulder. She looked around nervously. How long have you been stopped? 2 minutes. Change that tire fast, I mean it, this place is cursed. We worked quickly, jacking up the truck, removing the blown tire, mounting the spare. I kept checking the time. 2:51 a.m., 2:54 a.m., 2:57 a.m. At 2:58 a.m., I heard an engine roaring, loud, powerful, accelerating. I looked up and saw headlights weaving between lanes. A pickup truck, Dodge Ram, coming fast on the shoulder, heading directly toward us. Move! I screamed. The other driver dove away. I tried to run, but my foot caught on the jack. I fell, scrambled to get up. The Ram hit my truck at 3 a.m. exactly. The impact was massive, thunderous. My truck lurched forward, the cab twisting. Metal screamed, glass shattered. The force threw me sideways, and I rolled, hitting the guardrail hard enough to knock the wind from my lungs. When I could breathe again, I looked at the wreckage. The Ram had T-boned my truck's cab exactly where I would have been sitting if I'd been inside. The cab was crushed inward, completely destroyed. If I'd been in the driver's seat, I'd be dead. But I wasn't in the driver's seat. I was lying on the shoulder, bruised and battered, but alive. The other driver ran over. Are you okay? Jesus, that truck came out of nowhere. I'm alive, I gasped. I'm alive.